20th day of April, 2023. Please rise if you're able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Seated. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Certainly. Supervisor Schneiderman.
Here.
Councilwoman McNamara.
Here.
Councilman Martell.
Here.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Schiavone.
Present.
I thought we were going to be unanimous. There's always one in the crowd. I was going to say it's unanimous.
We've had this discussion.
Over and over.
And over, and over, and over.
Some of us are here and some of us are present.
Terms of it.
All right. So we're going to start with reviewing the draft agenda for next Tuesday's meeting, and then Sunday can publish it. So we're going to be here on the 25th of April at Town Hall. It's an evening meeting, 6 p.m. And we will have 5 public hearings. The first of which is considering amending the code, the exemption for voluntary fire departments and ambulance services, Chapter 298, to reduce the minimum service requirement and clarity, partial exemption for property not used exclusively for primary residence. So I think, what is that, Tommy John? We're going from 5 years to 2 years of service?
Correct.
Before you can qualify for a 10% reduction in your property tax?
Right, you can put in the application for a 10% reduction in your assessment, which is 10% across the board on property tax payments. So that's a
And what
good
is
thing.
the,
And that is also corresponding to the probationary period of the fire departments. I'm not so sure about ambulance, but when people get into these companies, they have to get trained, and in that training process, they're on probation, and they have to do it within 2 years. And it's
Okay.
significant, too. It generally takes,
You have to be in good standing.
yes.
You don't have to necessarily be LoSAP qualified. You just have to be on the roll. So it's really up to the fire department, right, and the ambulance to say who are the qualified folks?
Right, there are a minimum amount of points that members have to accrue to be in good standing, and that varies slightly from department to department. LoSAP is a state program, and that is based on 50 points of participation. That is trainings, meetings, fires, and ambulance calls that they have to go to. And
What-
again, it's significant,
What
even to get the good standing for it.
What is the clarified partial exemption for property not used exclusively for primary residence?
That is language that is in the state code, and the language in the state code that allows us to do this, it refers to portions of the property not used as primary residence. If there's a portion of the property that has an accessory apartment on it or is used in some other way, only the portion of the property that's residence is the part that they
Gets
get
reduced.
deducted. Right.
Now, if somebody in the fire department owns 2 properties,
They're primary.
only the primary.
Oh, sorry, finish the question. And then-
No, that's what I was going to say. So let's say you have a married couple and they're both in fire and ambulance. Do they get 20% off?
No, they get 1. They get 10.
One. But if they own the second property, they could take it on the other?
No.
No?
I guess
Okay.
go to Oxford.
Okay, so you get,
And that's part of the language that is being added to this. It's the primary residence. You can't put it onto a rental that you have or a commercial property or something. It is for your primary
but
residence.
if you have 4 firefighters living in the same house,
If it's their primary
you
residence,
still only get one 10%
that's correct.
reduction. Okay. All right, the second hearing is, and thank you for that clarification. The second hearing is to consider authorizing the Triton Lane East Quogue Beach Parking Pilot Program. And Cindy, this is your initiative. Do you want to just explain what it is again?
It is summer
Summer Sundays?
Summer Sundays, it ends up being, it's, I think, 17 Sundays and 4 federal holidays. So it's 21 days for the entire summer that vehicles are permitted, because vehicles are permitted right now before 9 a.m. and after 6 p.m. anyway. This would allow them to be on the beach in a very specific area, 75 feet from the center line of Triton Lane, east and west, limited to 30 vehicles, and it's only on those Sundays and federal holidays, and it's only 30 vehicles, and it's a pilot program, so if there's any issues, we
Is it
can...
from 10 to 6, or is it lesser hours, just midday?
It would
Yeah.
presumptively keep that open on Sundays. You could go on at 8, I mean, because you can be on at 8 anyway, until
you
after
can stay
6
on,
p.m., and you could
okay.
stay on after 6 p.m. if you would like to, because you're
Yeah.
allowed there after 6
Or
p.m.
are we fencing off?
Well, there'll be a marked area
I
for
want to
it.
make sure, because you do have at Hot Dog Beach, you have a lot of
Yep,
Sundays
there'll be a,
families.
believe a snow fence that'll delineate the area so you stay within the area.
And we're keeping it sort of toward the dunes?
Yes.
Not toward the ocean where lots of people
Yes,
walk
and
across.
it could very well end up that the plovers or erosion could shut this whole thing down, and it could not
Are
happen
we
either.
limiting the number of vehicles or
30.
just the space? 30.
30, no more than 30 vehicles.
No more than 30 vehicles. Is somebody going to be policing that?
The Bay Constables,
Okay,
harbor masters.
okay.
And what are we voting on this? Because it's a trustee easement and a trustee road. I imagine that will,
That's their, they have
Be part
part
of
of it, so they have 50 feet of it, and then in essence, we have 100 feet of it, because it's 150 feet in total, and they can't go, they don't have the ability to do any more. They could do the 50 feet at Triton Lane by themselves without any say from us. We're just adding
50 on each side.
50 on each side to it.
right, well, the easement on the beach is a trustee easement. That's, we're having a public hearing.
Right, but the area,
So,
so the 50 feet on either side of Triton Lane is in
Is
front
ours.
of town-owned property.
Just like the village,
We own both sides, so it's not in front of anybody's homes
No.
or anything like that.
just like in Southampton
oh, because
Village,
of
the
it's
village
in front
has,
of our-
Is it a water
Yes.
reserve?
property, and even though it's trustee easement.
It's
we
our
still
property.
need to-
Yeah.
Okay.
So what is the history on beach driving? There was a point where people could just drive on the beach, but then the town came along and said, in the summertime, no driving on the beach, right? And there was only one place in the entire township, right, which was this picnic area.
yeah, and I think it's
But
because
prior
it was
to
in.
that regulation, though, it was sort of standard that people drove on the beach.
It was, but it was, in that one area really where it stayed, because that's generally where most of the families congregated. Just like Suffolk County Campground, like you go there now and there's very specific spaces for campers, and you talk to people like friends of mine that camped there when they were kids. They would literally circle campers, they would park them wherever they wanted to, and then the county said, you know what? We're gonna put this system in place where we, rent out the spots and make it
And
more
that
formal.
spot is in the village.
It is, the
So-
picnic area is in the village.
So we have, this would be the only spot in the town under our regulation.
On the ocean side, currently you can go by Cold Springs all day and drive on the beach, and a lot of people do take advantage of that.
Okay.
Years ago, there were a lot fewer four-wheel drive
Yeah.
vehicles.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, we had to get out and lock the front hubs.
Yeah.
And, it was a
And I
process.
think it was those who had four-wheel drive back in the day, they really were baymen and fishermen, and they were making their living.
Right.
Later on, it started to be more recreational. There's people wanting to hang out and drive on the beach, go for a joyride. And
Yeah, but I mean, that's the whole other thing about this. This is not for beach driving. This is basically beach parking. Nobody's gonna be driving up and down the beach.
Right.
You're gonna go on, you're gonna park your vehicle, and you're there for the duration, and you drive off when you leave.
Okay,
Yeah, you can do it now. You can park on the bay side too, after hours. If you go to East or West Landing or by Mashut after 6 o'clock on a holiday weekend, 4th of July, it looks like the Walmart parking lot. I mean, there's a lot of cars that go on the beach in the evening, so this is the opportunity to at least have a little leisure at the ocean side.
right. And even currently, I mean, after 6 PM, you can do it anyway.
The
Or
surfers
before
are generally, surfers will drive on all over the town onto the beach before 6 a.m. or before 9 a.m. and surf.
Yeah.
And then they just drive off by 9. But
Is that the current, is it 9 or 10?
it's 9.
9. All right. Thank you for that explanation. I think it's important because I know some I don't want people to be caught off guard
No.
about that, or think we tried to sneak one through here. I think it's important that you have public,
No, and it's something I've been asked for a lot, and it's something that I think is, the discussion has been going on for years of when can we get another spot in the town west of the canal, so we'll try it.
all right, so, the third one is public hearing to amend Town Code 312, vehicles and traffic parking prohibited on portions of Windermere Court in Spionk. The fourth public hearing is consider granting a license to install a monitoring well at property located at 275 Beach Road in Hampton Bays.
Yeah, it's from a Coast Guard request.
Okay. And number 5 is a public hearing to amend Chapter 330-340 to 330-346 dark sky laws for enhanced enforcement language additions. Jim, is that correct, that to or and between those two sections?
Let's see, which,
Let's see.
Chapter 340 to 346, or and 346. I believe it's
Two,
two, because there's
yeah.
multiple sections in that
right, I
code.
would
Well,
imagine it's.
I would imagine then it's 340,
340
341,
through
342, 343,
Right,
if 344, 345,
yeah.
and 346, the way it's written. So are there changes to all those
There are title changes, there are minor changes to times. So yeah, it did go across multiple
sections? Okay.
sections.
All right, so that's it for public hearings, then town board resolutions. Tommy John, you want to read the first?
Town Board Resolution ID 43120, authorize renewal of the town's financial solution and associated third parties perpetual license with H2O, formerly known as Interdyne, AKA Solutions. ID number 43125, authorize supervisor to renew the purchase of network hardware and software maintenance from CCSI.
The next one, 43049, authorizes me to sign a current contract with Suffolk County Office of the Aging to receive additional senior citizen nutrition program funding. The next one, 43139, authorizes me to sign a contract with Gray Shift LLC for digital evidence analysis, tool and platform subscription services for the town police department. The next one, 43136, authorizes supervisor to sign contract with Ryan D'Amico for sound system at Good Ground Park.
ID 43134 is to authorize the sale of the community benefit unit located at 203 Erie Way, East Quogue.
Town Board Resolution ID 43161, authorize the supervisor to execute a Parks and Recreation agreement for Denise Giles.
43059, authorizes supervisor to enter into an agreement with AKRF Environmental Planning and Engineering Consultants, connection with traffic review services for the traffic analysis for the ZBA site plan special exemption application of 911. Is that supposed to be 711?
7-Eleven.
I don't know what, 911.
It should be
Flanders.
7-Eleven,
Oh,
because they
but
were
it-
asking for additional traffic
I
analysis.
don't know, because it's 9-11 Flanders Road later on in the application.
Or the LLC.
Well, it doesn't say road.
It's
It
an
just
LLC,
says
they
Flanders.
often name them after the properties after.
I think it may be called 911 Flanders. It may not be. I have a feeling, though, this is 7-Eleven.
It is.
But it's the application of 911 Flanders LLC, so I think we got to leave it the way it
Yeah.
is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's saying it all through. That's the
Yeah.
name of the owner.
So we're doing a traffic review on this application
Janice would probably know.
to compare it to their traffic review, I suppose?
Yeah, to review the traffic analysis. That's already been
Yeah, the
done.
applicant pays for, it's probably a traffic analysis.
the
We've
land-
retained a firm to
the land
to
manager.
analyze the traffic impacts of this application.
It's 9/11.
Yeah.
It's
They
correct.
have to check. They have to analyze the analysis.
It's correct.
presented.
No, I realize
I mean,
it's
there's certainly a
correct.
lot of traffic there, and they're asking for variances for
But
entrances.
we do believe it pertains to the application
Yeah,
for a
7-Eleven.
7-Eleven.
Yes.
That's
yes.
existing 7-Eleven, yeah.
No, not the existing one, the one that's proposed at the circle, I think.
Moving on, Rick?
Town Board Resolution ID 43129, authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with DTN for Weather Century Online Public Safety. Town Board Resolution 43124, authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with Rave Mobile Safety for emergency notification to residents within the Hampton Bays Water District.
43138, authorize the supervisor to execute a sole source agreement with CI Technologies, Inc. for IA Pro and Blue Team software for use in town police department.
Town Board Resolution ID 43023, authorize the supervisor to extend a consulting contract with H2M Architects, Engineers, Land Surveying, et al. To provide on-call engineering services to the Hampton Bays Water District.
Town Board Resolution 43093 authorizes the supervisor to review the town's management agreement with Printer Logic Incorporated for digital document management software. Town Board Resolution 43094 authorizes the supervisor to sign agreement with Govern for Govern software upgrade.
43123, authorize supervisor to sign all documents necessary to engage surveying firms for the Fire Island Inlet to Montauk Point project. Hold on one second, it's the FIM project. So, Jim, did we get some surveyors that the numbers were okay?
That's
Yeah,
seven.
yeah, we have it's a good base of surveyors, and most of them had prior experience on the FEMA project with the county, so yes, we're very happy with the response.
So I see there's different not to exceeds, but these are multiples, they're gonna be doing multiple surveys.
Yes, yeah, there's a number of, obviously, there's 80 properties at least that we're gonna be surveying, so we wanted to have
So
a
the
number of different surveys so we could keep the
So
project
the
moving.
total cost to survey everything is around 668,000? And we have to lay that out, and then we get that
Back.
fully reimbursed,
That is the goal.
100%.
Well, that will happen, Jim.
Well, I hope so. 100%.
Will happen.
It's expected to happen.
Did the Army Corps did they have to sign off on the surveyors at all, or no? No.
The surveyors, no, they're not too particular with the surveys. They really are very involved in the appraisal analysis. That's been the experience from the county and the folks that have been involved, but they haven't been too involved in the selection of the surveyors at all.
So we don't appraise until we have the survey, right?
Yes, we have to have the survey, and then we know that at that point, you have a much better understanding as to what the impact of the project is on the individual lots. We'll have an engineering analysis as well.
And
We
they
have a
to
few different
determine
engineering.
the high tide marks, right?
I'm sorry?
They have to determine the high tide marks, depend on slope.
Right, and then, how, if these, because these are permanent work easements that we'll be obtaining here, and, do any of them touch any structures on the properties, how these easements are going to impact the properties that they,
It's important to understand, because, at some point, there's gonna be a dredge out there, and it's gonna be pumping sand and putting a tremendous amount of sand on that stretch of beach.
Sure.
Really from Shinnecock Inlet down to sort of to West Hampton. And it is a federally funded project, but we do have to lay out quite a bit and get reimbursed. And there's a lot of work that Jim is doing, Len Marchese, Gil Anderson,
Kelly.
Kellyanne. A lot of it, although this is a federal project, the town is responsible for a tremendous amount of work.
It is. It's, in the FEMA project, it was the county. But the county's obviously a lot larger organization than we are. They have a whole fleet of engineers and people and in-house appraisers and whatnot. We don't have any of that. So it is, it falls, it's quite a bit that's fallen on our shoulders, but, so far it's moved along pretty well. And fortunate to have people like Gil, who lived this in the county. I've known Gil a long time. I've worked with him at the county and other places, and he's terrific. And my goal was really to try to gain as much experience on the county's experience as possible. And so that's the first thing I did was, kind of reach out to Gil, and then Kelly and I and Gil met with the folks in real estate in the county, and we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're trying to, you know, learn from what their experiences are and moving forward. And
So, this is a 30-year project, so the beginning is, this is a lot of sand going out there, sort of putting back the beach that maybe was there 30 years ago.
right,
But then they do come back every few years and do some maintenance work to maintain those levels. After the first go at this, there is a cost share for the maintenance. And the, Village of Quogue will be picking up a piece of it, and the ECD, the Tiana ECD will be picking up a piece of it, so.
no.
But
And,
the local cost share is, I think, 15% of the overall. The state picks up some, the county picks up some, so.
I mean,
Actually, I'm not sure the county picks up.
yeah,
I think it's we're the local sponsor.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a tremendous project. Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of cubic yards of sand that can be placed to help restore the beaches. So it's, but it is very, very labor intensive, and it's to do the analysis on the impact on the easements and
Yeah,
you know, the first blush you would think that most homeowners would be happy about it, but we do expect that we'll have a number of claims, and have to handle those as well. You know, and the steps to actually acquire the vesting of the easements
I think, my first FIMP meeting was about 24 years ago. So this has been, I've been involved with this for a long time, but the FIMP actually goes back to around the time I was born, like
yeah.
1957.
1960.
Right.
No, so it was 1962, I think, or somewhere in there. It's the longest project, but it didn't get funded until after Superstorm Sandy. And of course, the coastline over the last 60 years has morphed. It's changed in lots of different ways, and they've had to update it. And the approaches have changed. There used to be a lot of hardened structures in the beginning. Those are all gone, and now it's mostly a dredging project, pumping sand and maintaining sand and moving it around, and some stockpiles and some environmental restorations.
Jim, I have a question about the legal costs. Are those reimbursable? Right. I mean, is that borne by the
We are
town,
hoping
or-
that everything will be reimbursable. I mean, legal costs, so far, we don't have any. I mean, besides
Well,
the
besides
salary
you
you're
guys.
paying myself and Kelly.
And that's not
And
reimbursable.
Sean, to some degree, have been working on it. Moving forward, if we have challenges in the court, we'll have to decide whether we want to
Outside counsel.
use outside counsel. The county used a firm that they're very, very happy with. Kelly and I have spoke with them. They may be an assistance. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how many claims we actually get.
If we're getting reimbursed for that, though, it might be cleaner to use out.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And they've been very good. And again, this is, I do have a fair amount of experience in condemnation work because I did it in the state attorney general's office, so I'm familiar with that end of it. I litigated condemnation cases, but I worked with the state. I had the state DOT. I had a fleet of engineers and mappers and surveyors, and so we don't have any of that here. And so we've been working, as best we can, and it's great to have Gil aboard. And Tom Houghton and Nick have been great too. But Tom and Nick have plenty of things on their plate that they don't need to, get bogged down on this project as well.
Yeah.
So
When this finally happens, though, it will, I think it's important that people understand the breadth of work that went into it, not just recently, but decades worth of
Sure.
work that went into this, and multiple congressmen,
yeah.
including Congressman Bishop and Congressman Zeldin.
We
This
surveyed the
is-
whole area last a week or two. We were out, Kelly and I were out with, and Kristen was there, and we pretty much drove the whole area that's going to be impacted with folks from DEC, as well as a whole fleet of folks from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So then they took measurements. They were looking at every, you have to look at every crosswalk that comes from the houses over the dunes, and they were measuring the dunes. And of course, as we all know, we're all Ocean Beach people, things change every day. So.
When is the dredge arrive? It's 2024?
Probably the
Or
work
later?
on this part of the project, earliest will be late 2024, probably
The fall
2025,
of
by the time we have to.
2024.
I mean, we have to vest on 80 projects, so not only if we get full, complete, 100% agreement from each landowner, which will not happen, unfortunately, you know, we'll have to get court orders on many of these investing projects as well. So that takes time. Just there's one Supreme Court judge who handles all condemnation claims for Suffolk County, so he's a very busy person as well. So that takes time. So
Yeah, that's frustrating because we're benefiting those homeowners.
Right.
We're increasing their property value.
sure, right, and there
And
is
we're
some
offering them the money to.
right,
to
and there
do
is
it.
some consideration there. You know, in my experience when I worked representing DOT when I was in the AG's office, I tried to use that to, you know, the benefit. It wasn't as applicable on highway projects, but on beach projects, there's been some success to try to balance out the benefit that a homeowner receives from this beach replenishment. The courts have considered that and have weighed that, so that is part of the analysis. But we'll say we had a very good public meeting in the Village of Quogue last year, and people were excited, so maybe we'll have more cooperation.
All right, let's move on to 43131. This authorizes me to sign an agreement with Thomson Reuters for West Complete Print Products for the Town Attorney's Office. What is West? Is that correct? Is that Westlaw?
Yeah, that sounds like Westlaw. Looks like a Westlaw. Yeah, that's Westlaw for sure.
All right, so we just
Or
check.
West Publishing. That's part of that.
It's West Publishing?
That's the name of that's the one company that runs.
Do you want me to confirm with Mark Redmond before I find out?
Yeah, we can, yes.
And it's just the title, but it's,
Just to sort of check. and
I'm
make
not
sure.
really seeing it in the body.
Yeah, Thomson Reuters is really
It's still,
Is that what it is?
the right West.
just check it.
It's Westlaw,
Let's
yeah.
keep, let's
I
keep
think it's
moving.
probably Westlaw, but
Probably Westlaw,
it's the
right?
online legal research services, I would say.
Okay, John?
Town Board Resolution ID 43082, authorize an award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for a 2022 F-250 Super Duty with plow at Lucas Ford Lincoln Mercury Incorporated. Town Board Resolution ID 3039, award and authorize the supervisor to sign contract with roll-off containers with Monmouth Solutions Incorporated.
43073, award and authorize supervisor to sign contract for sports courts resurfacing and construction requirements contract with the Land Tech Group, Inc.
ID 43072, award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for structure demolition at 62 Red Creek Road, Hampton Bays with Brian V. Klug Landscaper Incorporated.
43069, declare item surplus and authorize disposal of vehicles. 43056, designate professional appraisal firms for the town of Southampton. This is for FIMP again? No, this is
Yep.
this is for
This is
CPF.
Well, for both, yeah. Yeah,
It's-
kind of updating the inventory of appraisers. It's definitely going to be used for FIMP, but we're also updating for CPF as well and for general use.
Okay.
Town Board Resolution ID 43141, recall and amend Resolution 2023-103, authorize supervisor to sign agreement with Opus Inspection for New York State DMV Vehicle Inspection Program. Town Board Resolution ID 43164, recall and amend Resolution 2023-107, authorize supervisor to sign no-cost extended contracts with Palace Electrical Controls Incorporated for the electrical portion, Philip Ross Industries for the plumbing mechanical portion, and East End Material, DBA East End Group for the general construction for the wellhead treatment for the removal of iron and manganese on plant number 4.
They just wanted you to read that title one more time.
Sure.
And that's just because it's expiring
Right.
April 30th, we need more time?
Yep. Town Board Resolution ID 43160, recall and amend Resolution 2023-182, authorize supervisor to sign contract extension for maintenance, installation, repair of water mains with Roadware Construction Corp. Town Board Resolution ID 43165, recall and amend Resolution Number 2023-447, authorize supervisor to sign contract extension for pavement repair with Rosemar Contracting Incorporated.
43116, recall and rescind Town Board Resolution 2023-252. So there was a duplicate resolution there.
Town Board Resolution ID
you pointed that out.
43143, resolution authorizing the supervisor to execute a license agreement to install a monitoring well at property located at 275 Dune Road, Beach Road, Hampton Bays.
Town Board Resolution ID 43079, 2023 notice to bidders for mulching head for Takuchi TL12R2.
Town Board Resolution ID 43102, the 2023 notice to bidders for wood wearing surface replacement of River Avenue Bridge.
Town Board Resolution 43101, second notice to bidders for 2023 Silverado 1500 Crew RST four-wheel drive.
43041, authorized general fund pay-as-you-go purchase of commercial freezer. That's for the senior center in Hampton Bays. 43024, Hampton Bays Volunteer Ambulance Corp Service Award Program. That's the LoSAP. 43027, Southampton Volunteer Ambulance Corp Service Award Program. 43025, West Hampton War Memorial Ambulance Association Inc. Service Award Program.
Sunday, I'd like to be added as co-sponsor for those three at the LoSAP for ambulance. Thank you. Town Board Resolution 42922, resolution of adoption amending Town Code Article 14, exemption for members of voluntary fire departments and ambulance service of Chapter 298, taxation, to reduce minimum service requirements and clarify partial exemption for property not used exclusively for primary residence.
Can I ask on that, Tommy John, in terms of the financial impact? I know we're still gonna collect the same amount of money, obviously, overall within the tax district, but it is distributed differently. It's probably gonna be not noticeable, negligible, but you people.
Right, I considered
There'll
it
be
to
a
be,
lot more volunteers now who qualify for a 10% reduction.
well, that's part of the hope, but as far as properties not really accumulated from this or lost, it's going to be somewhat de minimis because the new firefighter actually has to own a house, and so
They can't be, they obviously can't be renters.
so it's given the number of firefighters and ambulance first responders in the town, moving it from 5 years to 2 years is going to be relatively.
With the ambulance, a lot of ambulance now, we have a lot of paid people. Like 50% probably of the ambulance folks are receiving some sort of payment. And some of them are also volunteering. You have paramedics and EMTs that are paid. We just have to keep track that, I guess as long as you're volunteering, you get the reduction. If you're paid and not volunteering, you don't. So somebody's got to just sort that out.
If they are part of the LoSAP program and the points program and they are volunteering, they qualify for this program. But that is, I think, a separate issue, and it probably should be looked at separately.
Okay.
And it is on for public hearing, is what we're discussing.
Yes.
It's on for public hearing and adoption.
Yeah. Rick?
Okay, Town Board Resolution ID 43095, authorized waiver of Parks and Recreation Facility use fee for the Hampton Bays High School Class of 2023 Commencement Parade. Town Board Resolution ID 43100, authorized waiver of Parks and Recreation Facility use fee for the East Quogue Chamber of Commerce 2023 Summer Concert Series. Town Board Resolution ID 43058, waive portable stage fee for the Hampton Bays Fire Department.
42959, accepts resignation of Glenn Schnabel, Senior Management Analyst in Budget and Finance. 42988, accepts retirement of Mark Conrad, Senior Accountant in Controller's Office. 43050, accepts retirement of Michael Joyce from the Southampton Police Department. 43137, appoints Janice Shearer to Town Planning and Development Administrator. from civil service list, so she's been provisional, believe it or not. She passed her test,
So
so
no new title to them, right?
Oh,
Write it,
Same title we can't remember.
Bravo, bravo.
congratulations.
Congratulations.
I heard just
I'm
three
not
then.
surprised.
42998, appoint Stephanie Vega to associate administrative position in highway. 42565 appoints William Rayner to groundskeeper 1 position, Parks and Rec. 43081, attendance at New York SATSB 2023 Child Passenger Safety Technical Conference. 43080, attendance MADD, I think it's mothers, right? Is that the,
Mothers Against Drunk
Mothers
Driving.
Against
Against Drunk
Destructive
Driving.
Decisions.
Mothers Against Destructive Decisions?
Our department was Department of the Year.
Award ceremony, our department was Department of the Year?
Yes.
That's for all the DWEs, huh? Yeah, that's great. 43135 rescinds resolution 2023-556.
Town Board Resolution 43121, hearing to amend the Town Code Chapter 283 Special Events in order to enhance enforcement ability, clarity, definitions, and restructure application procedures.
Right, and that's many pages there. What page do we end up on?
162, right?
That's,
62.
that's a May 9th hearing at 1.
62. Town Board Resolution ID 43152. It's the notice of public hearing of supplemental funding for WQIP, or the QUIP of Round Pond Stormwater Restoration QUIP project.
And that's Water Quality Improvement Project.
Yes, it is.
That acronym. All right, 43149, notice of public hearing on the acquisition of lands of, Five Towns College located at 4 Enterprise Zone Drive, Riverside, for water quality improvement purposes.
Actually, I'd like to be added to that.
You already are.
Am I?
Yep.
Oh, yes, I am, thank you.
Town Board
Can I
Resolution
do that
ID
if you want?
43026. Notice of public hearing to amend Town Code Chapter 316, vehicles junked and abandoned in order to enhance enforcement ability.
Was that junked or jumped?
Junked,
Okay.
So that's May 9th at 1 PM.
yes.
43150, notice of public hearing to consider the acquisition lands of K4K LLC located at 381 Flanders Boulevard, Flanders, and amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property.
Town Board Resolution ID 3153, that's page 72, is notice of public hearing to reallocate QUIP funding from Flying Point Comfort Station to Hot Dog Beach Comfort Station. There was an error in the first resolution.
It wasn't an error, it was.
Well, it was wrong, it was,
No, we had actually, we're going to do,
this funding was originally slated for Flying Point.
Flying Point, we're moving it over
We're
now.
moving to Hot Dog.
Yeah. So we're gonna put a bathroom in Hot Dog,
Yes.
not just the sanitary system. But
Right.
So we have we funded the construction of the bathroom yet
For Flying Point?
for
Or
Hot Dog
Grassland?
Beach?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a capital
I think
project
there's
yet.
money in there, but whether the project's been created yet, I don't know. First, you have to do the
Sanitary.
sanitary system.
And then we'll build the building? Okay. All right, 42889, and you guys are all on this one. Acquisition of lands of Rhonda S. Hesner Revocable Trust and Dara Smith Yates Trust, and amend CPF management and stewardship plan to include those properties. Did we hold the public hearing? I don't remember it.
Yes, we did.
Yes, we did.
What day did we hold that hearing?
It's in here.
I think it was last.
March 9th.
Whereas
Oh,
on
no, I'm
March-
sorry. It wasn't March 9th.
It wasn't that long ago.
It wasn't.
March 14th.
Yep.
It's
The one by the railroad track.
Yeah,
Yeah.
about a month ago?
Oh, is this the one adjacent to the Burden property?
I believe so, yes.
Yes.
Just give me 1 second here. Usually it says whereas a hearing was held on such and such a day.
March 14th.
Yeah, the very last
And the
one.
whereas at the bottom of
Oh,
the,
maybe,
Yeah, it's down there.
oh yeah, it's the last whereas.
yes, it's March
A
14th.
public hearing must be, okay. Which was held on March 14th. Okay. Yeah, it must be that little triangular piece.
Are you all good? Is there something you need to change, or?
No, I
Get
think
one
it's,
add-on.
I think it's okay. And then there's one add-on.
So we have one add-on, 43159, recall and amend Resolution 2023-393, award and authorize supervisor to sign an extended contract for full-depth reclamation with Rosemar Contracting Incorporated.
All right, is everybody okay with the agenda?
Mm-hmm.
With that one inclusion? All right, so Sunday, you're good to publish it with those corrections?
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next topic. So we are joined once again by Dr. Joyce Novak from the Peconic Estuary Partnership.
You don't need IT, right?
I printed everything
All
out
right.
today.
If you could give them to me first, so I can stamp them.
And today we forgot our reading glasses.
I'll pass it down, whoever needs to do that. So I'm here today to talk about our 2023 request and to go through, there were some questions that you sort of touched on last time about the amounts in the CPF and what's allowable, and I put together just some very basic
Thanks for coming back.
charts.
Thursdays in Southampton.
Sort of reviewing, I'm sure you guys do a lot of things that's not very fresh in your mind. So reviewing what kind of the original agreement was for the first 3 years, and it was a phased-in contribution to the program as allowable under the CPF law. And so I've just taken 2022 with what the breakdown of allowable costs is under the legislation. So I highlighted in a yellowy green color Southampton, what was received by the town, the total, the 20% of that, which is what's allowable for water quality, and then 10% of the 20%, which is the maximum.
Sorry.
We're having issues.
That's okay, I'll pause and wait for everybody to
It's like
look at the
Thanksgiving
same
dinner.
thing. That-
Everybody gets one of each.
Pass the
Yeah.
gravy.
Jim, do you have one?
Jim doesn't have one.
Okay,
Here's
sorry, yeah, I
Here,
thought
here.
I had them.
That's okay.
good.
They were,
Thank you.
until they weren't.
Okay,
Does everybody have this
Yes.
here?
Is that the one we're looking
Oh, yeah.
at? The one
This
with
is
the
what we're
colors?
looking at first, because I just want to review and field any questions about allowable costs, what exists in 2022, what the projection is for 2023, et cetera. So on the first table, as I said, was the original 3-year phased-in contribution. The second table looks at in 2022 what the total amount was for all the towns, but I've highlighted Southampton there in that yellowy green color. 20% for water quality, 10% of the 20% that can possibly go to PEP as long as there are it's matching other contributions, and what was actually given to PEP. So just looking at with those numbers that were well under that threshold, if people were nervous. And what I did with the bottom table was I took what is currently based on the first 2 months. There is a 57.1% reduction in what's been seen in the CPF fund in 2023. And this is based on the numbers that Assemblyman Thiel provides to the public. And I just looked at Southampton. If we build out 57.1% reduction over the whole year from 2022, what that number would be, because we're talking about right now the 2023 amount. And so that would be 40.74 million. The 20% for water quality would be 8.15 million. And the 10% of the 20 that's allowable is $810,000. And what the actual 2023 amount is $413,700. So just based on these numbers,
Right.
letting everybody know that we're still below that threshold at this almost 60% reduction that we're seeing in the first 2 years.
So these are currently matched, monies encumbered, either on the state level, well, federal level, I believe you said?
Right, so
Okay.
this is more than matched. In this year that we're talking about, we have $850,000 from the federal government, and we have $450,000 from New York State. So the
you
total of
anticipate-
East End Town contribution is $700,000. So
Okay.
all of those dollars are more than matched.
You anticipate more grants?
So we are
Hopefully.
slated in Congress to receive $1 million next year, which is great, but that still has to pass a federal budget. We all know how fun that is these days. So, you know, the anticipation is that it won't decrease. So at the least, the federal contribution will be $850 next year. At the highest, $1 million. $1 million is what we're authorized under the NEP federal legislation. So we can't get more than that from the federal government at this time. Does anybody have any questions about that before I go in what my proposal for the 2023 dollars is?
Good job getting the grants?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Yeah,
Okay.
what I like about it is that it cushions, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday on the.
Yes.
At the meeting.
Yeah, you brought this up at the meeting, which is why I
And
actually
I
added
and I
this table
appreciate
here.
that. This gives us some leeway for the fluctuations of the CPF fund. And
Right,
I
and-
think that's important.
And after I do the proposal, I'll talk a little bit about the next 3 years, just so that we can all look forward a little bit. But I also made a notation here at the bottom. I looked back 20 years, and the lowest it has been was 2022 for Southampton, where there was 22.38 million, which would still make the
No,
allowable
can't be.
contribution about $447,000.
2022, it wasn't,
2002,
Oh,
sorry.
I'm
Is
sorry,
the lowest it's
2000,
been
yeah.
in 20 years.
2002, well,
Sorry,
the program only started really toward the end of 1999, so it was
Right.
pretty
right.
new at that point.
But I did a quick review of the past 2 decades to kind of look at if there were periods of, you know, dip maybe around 2008, you know, times where we know that things weren't great, and what the lowest of that was. So just to give myself an
And I think
idea.
COVID was actually a good test of how stable that was, even, you know,
You
at a
can't-
certain point.
Right.
You can't
But over
really,
that 20-year period, I think that's.
you can't really look 20 years ago at dollar amounts and not correct them for inflation either, so
Right,
you're
but-
fine.
Well, that's true. You know, I understand that, but trying to
That
find the
amount of money
lowest
in
point.
2002 is double that
Yeah,
today. so-
yep.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't adjusted for inflation, it was
Nope,
just to.
these
just
are
to look
actual
at what-
numbers
at
without
what the
adjustment.
actual numbers
Correct.
were.
Yeah.
You can kind of factor that in.
Right.
Up here.
that's
I just
fine.
wanted to give everybody a certain level of comfort
Yeah,
with
that you're within.
what exists, and that I do keep an eye on that, and I track that before I make these requests.
Yeah,
And so moving on then to this, the page with the text on it. You know, what we're looking for in the 2023 ask is program office support. I have outlined some staff salaries, travel supplies for the office. The IDC rate is Stony Brook. We are physically hosted by Stony Brook University. So program office support is pretty straightforward. There's a series of projects this year. I spoke a little bit about the last time I was here last week, and Lucas talked about this eelgrass work that's happening. I just gave a very brief history for context here. You can read that sort of at your leisure. And what we're looking to do right now, immediately, I have 4 tasks outlined under work plan detail. And that is really to bring on the Smithsonian to do this local as well as regional work that's desperately needed in the realm of eelgrass. This means partnering with the Long Island Sound, other NEPs to develop our own Peconic quantitative data and have it so that it is comparable in these other regions. That is the only way we're going to be able to tell if restoration is working and to target areas of restoration that will work. Again, as I said last time, there is a shift. We are only looking at quantitative data to make these assessments. We are looking at seeds, as Lucas's presentation showed, right? A lot of times we see taking shoots from one location, maybe outside of Southampton waters, and putting them in, and there's no net gain when you do that, obviously, because you're taking something from one area and you're putting it in another. So we're looking at things like where are the flowering plants, so we can collect seeds, so that the lab at Stony Brook can harvest them and have a living lab to draw future seed sources from for work to take place in the Peconic watershed. And so, on staff, we don't have this level of expertise. Stony Brook, of course, does, but they have their own jobs to do. So bringing on the Smithsonian and this expert at the Smithsonian specifically to assist us, to work with the state as the regulator. Sometimes they need a little bit of assistance to help them go through some of this also. So providing support to the state, help them to help us be able to move forward and really help PEP develop this wide strategy. And with the research that is already done, use that knowledge to maybe target areas for some more initial sort of in-ground looks. We're particularly interested, I'm sure as you know, in Bullhead Bay. This is a site that the eelgrass has been decimated. Nobody can say why on a seasonal basis. I have, could be the fertilizer on the golf course, but nobody can say that for sure. But it comes back. And so it's, there's groundwater drivers there. We know this, but really digging into maybe the genetics of those plants that have developed this resistance to some pretty harsh things that are happening. So that's the eelgrass
Can I
portion.
ask, why is eelgrass important?
So eelgrass is extremely important because it's two reasons at this moment in time. One, it's the main habitat for most of our recreational fisheries and for bay scallops. We all are aware of the bay scallop problem that's happening. There are scientists working on that. The best we can do is continue to provide them with habitat, right? Cornell does do a seeding of bay scallops every year. They've done that for about 20 years. It is actually a very subsidized fishery in that way. But we need to keep the eelgrass really healthy so that they can continue to survive and hopefully.
What is that, is there a symbiotic relationship between the scallops and the eelgrass, or they just use it for shelter?
Protect.
Well, that's their habitat, and I'm sure they benefit from diatoms and food sources, which also live on, some of the eelgrass
Have we
blades.
experimented with any other possible habitat for scallops? Any
So-
other plants or even artificial, cover?
I can't really answer that question. That is not my area of expertise. But I do know that the research that is going on right now is to really look at resistant strains of the scallop
Okay.
itself.
Yeah.
Oh, the scallop?
The
Or
scallop.
this-
Correct, the scallop itself.
And we've, at least at Cornell with the SPAT program, I wouldn't say it's successful in trying to create an artificial sort of environment for those scallops. And they like to swim, and they also like to migrate within the eelgrass bed. So it's kind of, I believe this is the right approach. And this was all recorded, everything we talked about yesterday. And I would urge you guys to listen to it, because there's a lot of good fact in there. And I'm really happy about the Smithsonian. I just haven't had a chance to talk to you since that meeting, but
Yeah.
that's quite a program. And it links
Yep.
all the things that are going on up and down the eastern seaboard and makes us part of that and gets the data consistent across the board. And I think that's really critical.
Right, and that it's critical for the scallops and it's critical for the eelgrass. We are sort of in New York here at that, change point between what we call the Mid-Atlantic and New England, right? As we all know where we live. But this also means we're at this place where the water's warming a little bit more, right? We're receiving these changes a little bit more rapidly than other places are. And so we have to be conscious of that and build that into the work that we're doing. And the only way we can really serve ourselves well is to be in touch with the people north and south of us. And that's what we aim to do through the NEP network and through the Smithsonian network, who is tapped into the National Park Service, right? They're also doing this work at Seaside National Parks.
So I know with the hard clams, we had a lot of issues with predation, with the little, putting them out there small, and then I guess the little green crabs or something. That's not an issue with the scallops? It's not a predation problem?
Not for the die-off, no.
No.
That's not the issue.
There's a parasitical issue.
There's a parasite that seems to be triggered when the scallop is under stress, and currently that is most likely heat stress from the warming water, but also probably very low oxygen in the water. So that stress
More
occurs
that than
when
the
they
hog-nosed.
spawn, right after they spawn, when they're weakest, the temperature gets its highest, and the parasite, they are ripe for the parasite. And that's kind of this issue. We're in, 19, 20, 21, our fourth year of this.
Is there much going on with aquaculture in scallops? I know with clams and with oysters, there's a lot of aquaculture, but with scallops is,
Again, I can't really answer
No?
that question.
Well,
I
can
don't
answer a
know.
little bit. I mean, Cornell, we tried this with the spat program, not very successful. They seem to have a very complex life cycles, scallops. And
They
they've
do.
got a shorter life, they don't live as long as
Right.
others, and so they're very susceptible to changes in a very rapid order, and it doesn't work that well. Sometimes it's successful, at least what we've done with spat, but not.
And the eelgrass,
Not expected, not regular.
Right.
eelgrass restoration is important. I mean, these are the nurseries of the estuary system for a lot of other
Yes.
species in the estuary, in the brackish waters, of the uplands. So I think it's critical for this
Yeah,
estuary to
I would
bring it
agree,
back. I
it's
mean, for-
critical.
and-
Again, before PEP moves forward with eelgrass restoration, there's a lot of information we
Right.
need, because nothing
Right.
has really worked. So we've taken a step back. We did this a couple of years ago. We took a step back and again, as Lucas had said, we applied for grant money to do some research. The town provided some money to do some of this initial research. And we're really getting to the point where we've developed a model. We have this information this summer. We'll have a lot more information. If we can really be guided by the Smithsonian to herd the cats of all of these players, be able to then move that ball
so I
forward a
guess,
little bit.
sort of my thinking here, why I'm asking those questions about eelgrass and scallops, if a large focus behind the eelgrass restoration is to rebuild our scallop population. We just want to make sure we're looking at other factors in that scallop life, because if it's the cold temperature, we potentially could have nurseries in colder water and then move the scallops when they're a little bit older and acclimated to get them acclimated to the warmer weather, and then move them to a different location that they could now survive. I know we overwintered the clams. It made a huge difference putting the clams out a little bit bigger. So I'm just thinking whether there's other things that we're missing in terms of the scallops. The focus on eelgrass is important, but there might be other ways to boost our scallop population, is all I'm saying. That's-
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people looking at that question. I mean, to be clear, when I say subsidized fishery, that they have been, breeding, I wouldn't use the word aquaculture, but they have been releasing them annually for years to support the population. And you're spot on with clams being a little bit bigger. Shellfish restoration can no longer be throwing spat in the water, right? There's a lot of research that says they have to be grown out at least a year, right? They have to be this adult size. So, you've seen this from your own work. So, I think that's important. And I think coming at the scallop question in particular from many different angles is important.
Can we get schools and colleges involved with solving this problem? They probably are, I'm sure
Yeah,
Silmas
so
is involved, but some of
even
the high schools.
outside of where we are, SUNY Maritime is working with Adelphi on sort of the inner Long Island Sound on something very similar, right? Looking at all these different things that we can do. Obviously, we know Stony Brook is working with Steve Tuttleback at Cornell for a couple of years now, and there's some people in Cape Cod. Cape Cod is starting to see this parasite. So they're also working up in Cape Cod now to also carry out research.
Multi-million-dollar business.
Yeah.
I think it's
Used to be
important too
huge.
that we're, and this, looking at this holistically is really important, because little items like that can make a huge difference, but you have to observe them, you have to quantify it, you have to put it in context of the changes that we're seeing. And we talked about this yesterday, for 30 years, we've been working on eelgrass restoration, but it's like, as you said, we move it from here to here. And what are the factors that are actually affecting that? And there's a lot of people working on this right now, so
No,
I'm
and
excited by it.
sometimes one person picks up one minor point that turns out to be a major point.
Yep,
Right.
and you have to have enough
It was-
people doing it.
Well, that's the hope of bringing all of these people from Maryland up to try and work together to solve some of these
I know,
problems.
like when I was
Smithsonian.
involved with the East Hampton Shellfish Hatchery, and, we were seeing like a 95% mortality rate for the hard clams. And I would say, well, what's happening? And they were being predated. And so the idea of overwintering, so can we try putting them out when they're a little bigger?
Right.
And hard, and that worked so well. And that now is the practice, is to grow them larger before you put them out. So a much lower mortality rate, a
And
little more
that's the-
expensive.
That's the transition, like in SPAT with the oyster program, is that, they used to try to correct everything by throwing spat out, and they just land in the mud and die. They had
Right.
nothing to adhere to. So
Nothing
you
to adhere
build
to,
the,
yeah.
you build the reefs to help them do that, but you also put them back in the water when they're larger. That's
Yeah, there
work.
was a
Right.
That's
huge
clear
scallop,
evidence of
we
that.
funded a huge scallop sanctuary. I think it didn't work out, I'm trying to remember whether it was in East Hampton or South, I think it was off Southampton in the Bayside. There was a giant scallop sanctuary, but it didn't work.
For scallops, it's different. They seem to be more
And
sensitive.
I remember when I was at the county, funding with the Nature Conservancy, a big clam project in the Great South Bay, which also failed. It was like $1 million. I'm not saying we shouldn't try these things, but like if the habitat's not right,
Well,
and
but
like
as
you're
you say,
saying,
you have
you
to
know-
find that you have to find that issue, and you have to observe it and measure it to be able to find that it's truly effective, whether it's the salinity and oxygen and temperature, parasites, all these other things.
critical mass, which is important too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Understand you
yeah.
can't just put a few, you have to have
You have to
enough.
have, yeah.
Right.
So
And all
eventually
of-
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, all of these learning experiences have brought us to this moment to say, we know we need to do all of these things before we put anything in the water. There's a lot of hydrodynamic work that needs to happen before we put anything in the water.
Right, I
You
know
know, the-
Dr. Gold was big on that too, is getting that baseline research.
You need the base, that's why the SHRP project was successful.
Yep,
And it's the only
Like where
one
that
really
cold
that's
water is coming
massively
from.
successful.
Yeah.
So,
the Shinnecock Bay.
Yeah.
Project,
Um,
because it was
so-
all based on data,
exactly.
yeah.
And that's why we've engaged them with this Blue Carbon East project, because we want to emulate what they have done with their method.
Yeah, that's great.
Because it worked.
All right, let's keep
Okay.
going.
So moving on,
You know I love this stuff.
I know, I'm sorry, I could talk about this all day too.
Okay.
So
I
the
think we
water
all do.
quality app and database, what we hear from all of our partners is there's so much water quality data out there, how do we get it? What is it relevant, what does it do? So we've purchased, 2 years ago, a server that we are now going to collect everybody's data from everywhere and
Okay.
have it on an app that can either be on your phone or on a computer or however you want to look at that, and it will be labeled with what has been quality assured, what is just maybe citizen science data, what the different levels of it. Sometimes data is taken for a project that only lasts a year or two, and then what is kind of the stock, water quality work that PEP and the county and the USGS have been doing for years, just so that it's accessible, it's in one place. Our Water Quality Collaborative has already started bringing everybody together to get this information.
Will access to this be free?
It will be free and it will be public. Everything the estuary program does is public and free. We don't charge money for anything.
Good.
It's actually required of our federal dollars, so.
And it's pretty useful, it's really useful data that's derived in the.
Yep, it's very useful to look at areas to focus on and so
will that
forth.
include what, temperature and oxygen and salinity and coliform, and what kind of
Well,
data?
so it depends on what's out there. What we collect are most of those things. If other people are collecting different types of data for specific purposes, usually the standard is, conductivity, temperature and depth, salinity, which is related to conductivity,
Yeah.
nutrients, DO, There's chlorophyll A data out there, which is, can tell us about if there's algae in the water, if there's potential for a bloom. We have started, we're in year
other
2.
chlorophylls, too. Other chlorophylls as well.
Correct. We have started to engage Gobler's lab to specifically look at our priority embayments. And that is work that the town funded last year here in Southampton. This year, we're funding it with our own money because we want it to continue. It was so successful. The lab is processing that data. I'll have a presentation for you when they're all done. But that was highly successful, so we're gonna start paying for that ourselves for the next couple of years. So that initial investment is already leveraging the next 10 years for keeping this data out there and going.
So then we'll have to speed up now. So
Sorry,
the next-
okay.
the next group is,
So part of this is a mini grant. We're gonna combine $31,000 of Southampton money with $94,000 of federal money for a large-scale mini grant focused on clean water. And nutrient reduction education. We really need to get back to all of our towns and communities to urge them to upgrade their septics, remind them about fertilizer use, all of those things that we do. We are putting in a very small but very necessary eel pass, right? We're so focused on the alewives, there's a little tiny wall that the American eels cannot get over, so we're gonna put that in. And we're continuing with our community fishing program, which is where we work directly with non-English speaking communities, primarily Hispanic communities, to bus them and bring them to the Peconic River and the western shores to go fishing. This is a partnership with DEC. They provide all the equipment. We provide the buses and the people and the lunch. Does anybody have any questions?
Does the DEC give them fishing licenses?
So the DEC is there, so they don't need a fishing license for the day.
They told if they
Which is
wanna
one of the
return.
reasons it was fortuitous to partner with them. It's actually their program that was so under the radar, nobody knew it was there. So we managed to tap into it. They predominantly do it in streams upstate, but we're so excited to come to Long Island and do it here, so we're excited to work with them.
And I'm
on
sure
it.
that they educate about, licensing and
Yes.
size requirements
Yep.
and all of that.
Yep, we do a
That's good.
series of interactive education sort of pieces on the day with them about clean water, and the DEC talks about their licenses. We talk about where you shouldn't eat fish from. Some people are still eating fish where they shouldn't and fishing, so hope that we can get that message out so people don't get sick.
Okay, good.
Times of year.
Appreciate the amount of information.
Times of year are important with that, I'm sorry. But the times of the year, as far as the shellfish is important, as far as harvesting and eating it in certain areas, right?
Yeah, but that's largely related to, right, the temperatures and things that change that cause those, there was an article in Newsday about closures in Flanders. We see this unfortunately over and over.
Conflagration of events.
Right, and when these things happen, so using that opportunity to educate people that generally don't engage with us because what we produce is in English, and what we have in Spanish is not really being
Sure.
engaged as much as we'd like, so we're trying to get at that too.
Great point.
Thank you for the level of detail.
What-
Transparency.
Anytime.
What should we know about paralytic shellfish disease?
That it will make you very, very sick and could kill you.
So there was, what, 2 areas that were closed for that?
Yeah,
Pretty
Western
sure, yeah.
Flanders and Meeting House, Terry's Creek.
And
in-
part of Shinnecock, outside of the Peconic.
Oh,
River,
right,
yeah.
right, there were areas
And it was
outside
in
of.
mussels? Is that what it was?
So, right,
Shellfish.
they keep tester mussels in the water, right, with a bag with a bright red sign on it. And so that's how they test to see if this, the PSB is there, and it came up in their last round of testing. So that's what they use. They have testing sites at those locations
Okay.
that are mussels. And I know I'm
And there's a
probably
bulletin posted
out of
for everything.
time, but I just wanted to very briefly, on the back of this finance sheet, just go over with you. I will be back again in a couple of months to look at the next 3 years and a commitment from all of the towns. I think this worked really well. I think we were able to leverage a lot of your dollars to get bigger things done in the watershed. And so just looking at, for 3 years, matching what is currently $850,000 across the board every year. So I will look for that request in the next couple of months. I'll be at the East Hampton Supervisors and Mayors Association so that all the towns are on the same page. and to move forward the same way we kind of have, to do this. And please reach out if you have any questions on any of this. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joyce. Thank you.
Eelgrass
Thank
used to
you.
be used as insulation.
I know.
It was.
I know, and they farmed it.
So
That's
much
why
of it, yeah.
Agavonica's in such disarray.
Okay,
Highly
we're gonna,
flammable.
thank you, Dr. Novak, and we're gonna move on to our next topic, which is ADUs, accessory dwelling units. We are joined, and I'm gonna ask you folks to come forward. Kara Back, who is our Director of Housing and Community Services. Janice Shearer, our Town Planning and Development Administrator. Gwen O'Shea, who is President and CEO of CDC-LI, Community Development Corporation of Long Island. Hi. Good morning. To all of you. So, ADUs has been a hot topic as we try to address the severe shortage of housing for our workforce, and it's always challenging whenever we do apartments and things like that. Often a lot of opposition, in general less opposition when we create an apartment within a home or a garage or basement. Spreads it out a little bit, and we've been looking for ADUs. We have legislation that I know, Kara, you've been working on, that you'll talk about. We modified a few years ago, we made it a little bit easier to do an accessory dwelling unit, but very few people actually come in and ask for legal accessory apartments. There's probably still a whole bunch of unapproved accessory apartments out there. But recently, we were approached by CDC-LI to partner with them because the state was offering some significant funds toward creating accessory dwelling units. And so we teamed up with CDC-LI, and we were successful in a almost $2 million grant. And we're going to talk about that today in terms of how we're going to try to roll that out and hopefully create 20, maybe more than 20 apartments that are affordable with that. So who wants to
I can start.
let's kick this off? All right, Karen?
Yeah, as you mentioned, Mr. Supervisor, that in 2019, the town amended the accessory apartment law in an effort to assist with the affordable housing crisis in the town. The amendments were enacted in order to bring more housing opportunities for income-eligible individuals by requiring that the rent charge be fair market rent and that the tenant be income qualified. We've discovered that the code can be further amended to make it easier for the town to approve these accessory apartments and to increase the number of units throughout the town. I think currently we have 130 units. One of the issues that have been problematic with the current code is the requirement that a development right be extinguished in the school district where the accessory apartment is located. This requirement is just not a sustainable means of for achieving affordable housing because we have a limited number of development rights within that school district that can be extinguished. One of the proposed changes to Town Code 33011A would be to remove the requirement that a development right be extinguished. The current code requires that the dwelling or accessory apartment be owner occupied. We would propose removing that and allow the owner to live either on a full-time or part-time basis within either the accessory apartment or the dwelling unit.
Is that personal ownership or LLC is allowed?
It would be the member of the LLC
Yeah.
would be allowed
Okay.
as well, yep. We'd also propose reducing the lot requirement for an accessory apartment. Currently, that is 30,000 square feet or 3/4 of an acre
No, I
to.
thought we already reduced it to half an acre.
So it's reduced in the CD, if you're in a CDP area where,
Oh, right.
yeah,
We
then it's.
reduced it in some
50%.
areas.
Some areas.
Correct, right, not in all areas. So we are proposing reducing it from that 30,000 down to 15,000 in all areas, not just in those CDP areas,
Okay.
okay?
CDP, was that like census density population?
Designated
Yeah.
place.
Designated
So you
place.
didn't take the civil
So
service
we had this
exam.
weird, I'm sort of to blame for this, okay? So when we did the last amendments, I think it was 2019, and it was tough getting the board, everybody on board, and there were areas who felt that they shouldn't have more accessory apartments, that they didn't really want them, or they felt that they had, were shouldering a lot of the workforce. And so we said, basically, if you have less than 500 people per square mile, you can get these accessory apartments on smaller lots. But those areas that have more than 500 people per square mile can't. And it's created lots of weird problems. And at this point, we need apartments where we can get them, and we can't just sort of say, this community doesn't get them. And there were property owners who felt like it was prejudicial against them. They might have had a lot that would qualify if their lot was in another area, but it didn't qualify because they were, in one of those places we didn't allow. So, I mean, it's a board decision, but.
Also, most people came for variances from that standard. In the very places that people said they shouldn't have them, or the people that need them the most, that they're saying, hey, I got my mom or my brother or so it's usually for family. Most instances, people need a place to help their families that's not in their immediate space. And they come and say, we need relief from this.
Yeah.
So more often than not, they're requesting relief from that standard.
Although for immediate family, a rental permit's not required, correct?
Yes, it is.
You need to get a rental permit, but they don't have to follow the income qualifications
Okay.
or the rent requirements for the family, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So we're also proposing changing the minimum size of an accessory apartment from the current requirement of 400 square feet to 300 square feet. We're also proposing allowing an accessory apartment on a lot that also has a professional home office. We also are proposing that the tenant can reside in the accessory apartment on a seasonal basis if they can show proof of seasonal employment within the town.
So before, the unit was only for a year-round worker, which can lead to more kids in the schools and things like that, but we're in a tourism community where we have a tremendous need for seasonal workforce, and so this debate came up, is, well, what if somebody's income qualified, but isn't necessarily year-round, it's only gonna be here working for, the summer, why can't they go into an accessory apartment? So that's the thinking there, that why make it that you have to live here year-round when the jobs are largely seasonal?
And that apartment would still have to come under the rent requirements, and that person would still have to be income qualified, as you mentioned.
So we would be reviewing this seasonally, annually,
Potentially.
seasonally.
For those
Beginning of
units
this-
that come in as a seasonal unit,
We would
right?
have to do that, yes.
So you'd have that distinction in a rental, seasonal rental versus year-round rental in the process.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, you have people too you have tenants who move in and out. Somebody could leave after the summer. Anyway, they could have been down as a year-round and said, you know what, I can't make any money right now, I'm moving to another community.
The rental permits are good for a year or 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years. So
Can
you would get
people-
a,
So, but we require the lease to be for at least a year.
Okay.
So,
Can they be rented on the off-season? I'm imagining the answer would be yes. So a seasonal rental, somebody
there is
works
no
here.
off-season anymore.
Well, I know that. We used to have a thing called
There
winter
is.
rentals, and they were a lot cheaper.
Tumbleweed Tuesday,
and,
which
you know,
doesn't exist anymore.
You live with the parents over the
Sorry.
summer, you're gonna work the winter.
We just
But
don't want
I
it to
could
be
see something like that
We don't want it to be
coming back to some
Airbnbs.
degree, and it did serve a purpose.
right. Right.
So I think we should allow that, right?
That's-
I would imagine
yeah.
if they work here, they could do it. So it would fall under the existing code as you wrote it.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
So if they show you a lease for 2 years and they get a 2-year rental permit, there's really nothing stopping them from, that person moves out tomorrow and they take somebody in at a higher rate and just don't do it.
Well, then
Lease.
they
Breaking
have
the
to
law.
amend,
Well, that's what people do when they have accessory apartments. They
That's
break
what
the
we have
law.
on this- You're talking about
Program.
ADU
though
here.
they would have to amend the rental permit to show the new tenant. That new tenant would have to
Right.
requalify.
I think that the easier you make it and maybe even include some type of amnesty provision so people can legalize what they do have, we would then put them on a track to, the biggest thing is that we don't want anybody to get trapped in a house or hurt or, not proper fire alarms. And so what we're looking at is for them to comply with the law because we made it easier to comply.
And I think that Gwen's gonna talk a little bit about that with regard to the plus one ADU program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is people do things and they, take advantage of situations. So there's nothing stopping somebody from opting in under this program, right, and getting an ADU, and then they lose their tenant, and then it becomes an Airbnb, especially if the owner's not
Well,
there.
That would be
illegal.
That's
illegal.
illegal.
It is illegal, but that's what people do.
But that's why we need to be able
And
to
they're-
Well,
enforce
I've,
it.
They
yeah.
would be taking a risk.
You
God
have
forbid
Kara's
something
office.
happens, they don't have a proper
But
rental permit.
you're basically legalizing almost like share housing, because if the owner is not on the property and the owner is not there year-round, and they're renting out their primary residence in, say, for the summer, and then there's a tenant in the apartment, I think the owner has to be on site. The owner has to be on the property year-round.
That's
I
how
don't
it
think
is
so.
right
I
now, the
think-
rules now are say that.
Right.
I think it has to stay that
As long
way.
as they have to be in the program, we have an enforcement mechanism. So if somebody, there's a lot of people who are here for the summer and they spend the winter in Florida, whatever it is, and they have a house that could provide an accessory apartment. I think, but that accessory apartment has to be in our program, which means that Kara has the ability to enforce this to make sure that the person in that accessory apartment meets the income qualifications. So otherwise we just.
There's
take-
also nothing stopping
what
people
you're not getting
from
accessory
coming up and
apartments.
living in that accessory dwelling unit and renting out their house for 2 weeks at a clip during the summer. I mean, it's,
That,
But
well,
It's always been one or the
All I
other.
know
So
is that
you could
we-
have a home and you lived in it and then you rent out the apartment, or you move to the apartment and you could rent out the home. So we've been operating under the one rental per property rule. This suggests that you would have, the person who lives in the primary dwelling isn't, may be the owner, but may not be, they may be wherever they are, they're not necessarily on the site, and they want to be able to rent out. So, yeah, you have to go into it with your eyes open that those people that own it may not be there. But there's some clause here that says,
Some of our
no
wealthiest
other owner
individuals-
shall own a larger percentage than the owner occupant, right? So there is a provision about, in 11.2A at the end, the owner occupancy situation, it says, no other owner or owners shall own a larger percentage. That like kind of gets rid of like the business model of like, I'm gonna get this house and just keep
Remember, Cindy,
circulating
too,
and renting
we
it out.
need these east of the canal, and you have a lot of seasonal houses east of the canal, and if you basically have this provision that's currently, none of them can qualify. So, because they're only there for half the year or a third of the year, so, and I think a lot of them potentially would come in and have a year-round person, and they would probably love to have somebody there on the site year-round, because it just keeps an eye on it for them. I don't know that the owner necessarily
I
is
think
keeping
you're
an eye on the
looking- you're-
tenant. The
you're
tenants
look-
keep potentially keeping an eye on the owner's property.
you're
too.
looking at it from the best case scenario aspect.
All I know is the
I'm
current
looking at it
code isn't
from, you're now
producing
putting them
accessory
on 3/10 of an acre lots, and if the owner doesn't have to be at the house, it's a very small space, and it's just, now you have potentially two different individuals on a space. I just think you should have to be there if
I think
you're
the
gonna.
current code is not producing accessory, but we have to open
It's-
it up. How many did we get, Kara?
6.
So
Six.
you're telling me that
So-
section F is completely off the table if it's a family member?
So if it's a family member, section F is talking about the square footage?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it would be 15,000 square feet. or
No, I'm
1/3
talking,
acre.
or no, not even that, I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm sorry, on section E. It's E, where they have the rental permit and
Oh, okay.
the income requirements, those are off the table if it's for family?
Right, so if you have a family member residing and you show proof that it's a family member, they don't have to income qualify.
Okay, and they can also pay you more than,
Yeah, I mean, in most cases, the family member isn't paying any rent.
Yeah, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying in the case of a family member, like, you know, you take your parents in and you build an ADU for them and they want to pay more than what they're, you know, allowed to pay. Because they want to pay for you to
that.
build
Yeah,
the,
There's a waiver, yes,
Do we have a
because there's no
definition of a
lease, so
family
there,
member?
you know, we're not checking a lease in that case where it's a family member.
Do
so,
we have a definition of a family member?
Yes,
There is a
we do
definition.
330.
so there's no lease if it's a family member, so what if it's a family member and then 2 months later, the family member moves out
So-
and you get a lease?
So, under our code, they're required to register that new tenant with code enforcement, and that would trigger the requirement of Section 80 that, you know, I look at the lease, I look at the income qualifications to make sure that that tenant qualifies.
And this is again on the basis of everybody following the law to the T and not taking advantage of the fact they now have an
We're trying to make it
additional
easier
living
for them to
space on
follow
their
the law.
property.
There's probably a lot of illegal rentals, there's certainly a lot of Airbnbs that are less than 2 weeks. I mean, you're allowed to rent for 2 weeks, but there's probably thousands of them out there. And, you know, we're trying to make it easier for people to actually create an apartment for our workforce.
But I just,
And it's
I think,
you know, the current program is producing, on average, like 2 a year. It's just, it's not.
and I get it, and I
significant.
think a lot of people are gonna go into the program with that outset, and then it's going to fall into all of these properties on small areas with with an apartment in a house, or an apartment in a house, and it's gonna fall out of the system. We don't have enough, if we're being honest, we don't have enough eyes on the system to keep track of all of this and follow through, and I
Your
just
concern is
think,
that it will be market rate instead of
I think it's gonna
affordable?
go to market rate, and I think these ADUs are gonna be used as Airbnbs, especially if you're not making the owner live
So
there.
we have, because we're envisioning a program where we actually help people build out these ADUs, and that's what CDC is gonna do, but, I mean, if they violate the program, they have to rip out the apartment. They have to pay back the money, you know, whatever it is, but they
But
don't.
I just don't see the enforcement being there to follow up on every, I mean, we have people now calling us saying there's
If there's
illegal
housing
apartments.
fund money,
And
there's-
we're trying to follow up on it. I understand where you're coming from and
It's
you're looking
illegal.
at it from a best case scenario. I'm looking at as these areas that are already dense, that are now gonna have legally permitted apartments that are, in my mind, going to become income generators for people.
Look, the old code allowed people to build accessory apartments with no restrictions. They could have them as summer rentals. That wasn't illegal. That's the way it was. We said if you want to add density to a property, it has to meet the town need of creating workforce housing. And there are plenty of grandfathered older ones that, yeah, they can make them summer rentals. But anything under the current code has to be affordable. You don't get a new accessory apartment unless it's in our program. And I think Kara has the ability to manage these. There's what, 120 of them out there?
130, yeah.
And are you able to keep up with checking to make sure that they're affordable? And-
Well, that falls under code enforcement, so, you know,
Right.
we check them initially, but code enforcement is the.
There's
check.
120 that are in the affordable range or
There
supposed to
are,
be?
there are 130 total apartments, with accessory apartments within the town of
Oh,
Southampton.
so some of those are grandfathered
Correct.
and not
Right.
even, they don't have to be for workforce.
That's
How
correct.
many have to be for workforce?
I would have to get that number for you.
But it's like 6.
There have been 6 within the last, since this code has been enacted in 2019.
Well, the development right is the biggest impediment. It
Yeah.
really is a nightmare. And honestly, it makes no sense because
It doesn't make sense.
you really, it's like 2 to 1 minimum. It should be like 4 to 1 on a development right. An accessory apartment, 300 square feet is not the same thing as a single-family home.
Right,
So
you're
to
wiping out
allocate
a
an
full credit.
entire development right it doesn't make any sense.
Agreed.
So you're wasting
And
that.
Are we requiring these people go to an IA system if they're going to
They
put
still
on an
fall under the
ADU?
same IA rules. There's, you know, if it's more than 20, you may have like interior space that you're not using that you're like, hey, I'm gonna make this an accessory apartment. Or you may be adding on 25% floor area and then you get kicked into IA requirements.
Does
So
the
it
county-
depends.
Does the
Depending on
county-
where our law stands right now, so if we're in the 0 to 2 travel,
It
that's different.
completely depends on your
But-
circumstances.
But, just on the IA system, we need to be careful on this, because the county's expanding everything, everywhere, and it's a good thing, but, how it conflicts with our IA laws right now, they're
It ha-
much wider spread than we are.
Well, it has to do with, the
Location.
amount of bedrooms. So the rules are that if your house already has 5 bedrooms and now your accessory apartment is adding a bedroom, you're IA.
Yep.
If you had 3 bedrooms, like my house is like
practically 2.5 bedrooms, small, and then I wanted to put an extra bedroom, I wouldn't, because the 5 is the threshold. So you have to like know these thresholds at the health
Over
department
5 or
level.
from 4 to 5 or from 5?
5 is your max of bedrooms
Of
that your
bedrooms.
300 gallons
Right.
today
It's a
accounts
flow
for.
rate, but
So
if
when
you-
you get more than 5, and it's not bathrooms, people always think septic, bathroom, that's what it's all about. It's about bedrooms. And so when you go over 5, then the health department makes you put a new
Makes you put an
system.
IA.
But
But you don't need a development right.
No.
I'm trying to point
sorry,
out
John.
that our under CPF, the money that's available that could help with the program, because we're trying to keep this affordable to begin with, you don't want to smack a builder with a whole bunch of additional costs on top of that. So we have a specific area where we can put in IA systems. The rest that we are at first come, first served basis, because we haven't expanded the program as we anticipated doing, but the county has already. So your program is going to get hit with that a little bit, I think.
Well, you may get thrown into the county health department saying you need a upgrade in your sanitary system,
Right.
and then what happens is all these grant monies become available to you as well. So it would
From,
be in
but
the
up,
ADU
up
plus
to a
one.
certain amount with the grant program in the county, and they can't add our CPF to that, that can be a problematic.
I
is
think
all
the
I'm
county
saying.
now is at 20, goes up to 20,000
Yeah.
depending on the
20,
income.
well, and we're talking about systems now that have increased
To
to
about-
35%,
yeah.
you know.
And we
we're-
do, I mean, that's one
Which
of
they were
the-
supposed to come down, by the way.
I know.
Yeah,
And they've
and they
only gone
haven't.
up.
They've gone way up.
So, I think that, first of all, I just want to point out, our maps are, the county has areas, that priority areas, and they expand them over time. Our maps take into consideration all of their areas. So we're ahead of the curve, because we were like, why wait 10 years?
No, what
to
I'm
be
saying
in
is
this
that they're
priority?
about to go big and be forewarned.
I'm saying we're one step ahead of them, and we're already at big.
Yeah.
And they're about to go where
Real
we already
super
are.
big, I guess.
So I'm trying to say that we're already knowing where they're going, and we've already accounted for it. So that's why we're
Yeah,
okay.
we have more on the ground than anybody.
So
Yes.
this,
Yes, we do.
but so this doesn't address the single biggest problem that I hear from people as to why they don't build ADUs. And that is they can't charge what they need to pay to build the ADU.
Well, that's
That's
a
a
great
great
segue.
segue. So, I apologize that I don't, do we have our, you're the best, thank you. All right, awesome. So it's a pleasure to be with you all. I'm Gwen O'Shea with Community Development Corporation of Long Island, and I'm joined by my colleague here, Jory Buffett, who's our Senior VP of Housing Development and Planning, and we're really excited, as the supervisor noted, to be working with you all on this program that has been made available through New York State, which is the Accessory Dwelling Unit Plus One. So we can go to the next slide, a little bit of background quickly on us. Sorry about the ridiculous font here. We can also send this all to you so you could actually read it. But CDCLI has been serving the region since 1969. We see ourselves as a partner with government, homeowners, community, individuals to really expand community development, create housing for all, and do it in a way that is financially and economically smart to ensure the stability of the household and the community moving forward. So next slide, please. So as we've started to talk about, and I think the supervisor, you noted, one of the great benefits of an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, is it really speaks to creating new housing opportunities within a community while respecting the character and the uniqueness of a community itself. So ADUs bring in an opportunity, as we've talked about, to create additional revenue for a homeowner, to also create additional housing opportunity for a renter. Next slide. So the Plus One ADU program, what is it? Some high-level aspects that we want to share with you all today. The state is still finalizing certain components of it, which we anticipate by the end of May having all of that information, and therefore having a live application out some point in mid-June once the state approves that. So the program itself, to Councilwoman, your point about the cost of creating an ADU, this program provides up to $125,000 grant funding to construct either a new ADU unit or bring an existing ADU unit up to code. Either way, both of those units have to meet the requirements of Southampton Town Code as it pertains to ADUs, which means obviously all the aspects that Kara has talked about, in addition to the rental component in terms of the rental cap there. So it's a great opportunity
Just to note, one of the things about the program in this first round of the up to $2 million distributed to residents within the town, this phase needs to be completed by March 2025. So we look forward, and we've already started conversations with leadership of the town of getting the word out, and that's why we really appreciate you having us here today to start letting residents and homeowners know that this program does exist. Next slide. So one of the caps or one of the requirements of the state program is that the ADU +1 is made available to homeowners that are at 100% of the area median income. We believe part of the rationale here, again, as the councilwoman noted, is the cost of creating this accessory dwelling unit, in particular for those that are financially constrained, may not have access to that type of capital. This brings in that capital. It also allows them to generate additional revenue by creating this accessory dwelling unit. So here on the slide, you'll just see examples based on household size of what that 100% of area median income represents. Next slide. So again, looking at some of the broader highlights, I've already touched on the $125,000. This does include project management. So CDCLI will be working very closely with the homeowner and the construction team on ensuring that this meets compliance and code. It matches the work scope that was put forward. I've also put an asterisk there because as the councilman was talking about the septic systems, the IA systems, CDCLI is also a CDFI, lots of acronyms. So we're a community development financial institution, which allows us to lend and fill gaps in ways that mainstream financial institutions do not. One of the ways we do that, we actually have a septic loan program right now, which matches some of the funds regardless of where you may be residing in Suffolk County, so that you don't have to pay out of pocket for those increased costs that we know exist. It's a fixed rate, a very low interest, and our team does a tremendous job making sure we're not putting anyone who does borrow from us in a further financial hardship, and really ensuring that they can make those payments back to us on a monthly basis. We have an additional program that we think will complement the $125,000 grant program. So if for whatever reason, just based on environmental factors or some other area that really needs to be addressed, it's going to cost another $10,000. We do have the ability to lend that to the homeowner, again, making sure, of course, that it's financially viable for the homeowner to take out that loan, but it does allow for it to go a little bit further depending on where we land at looking at sort of the median cost for construction here within the town. A couple of other areas that we think is really important to put on your radar and all of the residents here is that there is a 10-year compliance period. CDCLI is required to administer that compliance period, so we'll work closely with the homeowner to make sure every year we're looking at that rental permit, that it's everything is up to code as the town requires, that there is a resident residing in that property. This does have a year-long residency requirement. So as you all were talking about, perhaps seasonal occupancy, that is not allowable for these units. These units have to be a year-long lease with, and to ensure we meet town code, with another individual that meets those rental income qualifications. So we manage everything from the beginning through the 10-year compliance period. The homeowner is also required to make sure that their property stays up to code from a health and safety perspective throughout the duration of the 10-year period.
And what do you, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
What do you do if they're out of compliance?
That is a very good question. We're waiting for a meeting with the state in May to get further clarifications on that. One of the things we do know already, based on the information we've gotten back from the state related to the program guidelines, is that if for some reason someone sold the house, right, we would, based on sort of a prorated perspective, that money would be taken back. There is a restricted covenant that will be filed, which also is important for homeowners to know, because this is not sort of like, well, here you go, here's $125,000 rent for 10 years. We will have, some, like I said, liens and covenants placed on the property to ensure that at least the homeowner can't sell. But as it pertains to if they refuse to rent, we're waiting on guidance, from the state on what that would look like then to, get those dollars back based on the unit being created.
But if they're,
So there was a program here a long time ago where they had a 10-year fixed period, and then those houses reverted to market price. How do you deal with that?
Those houses, so the sale price is not at all taken, that is not, managed here. What is required here, or the way that the state is putting the program forward, is that it's a 10-year forgivable grant. So it's prorated on those 10 years. After the 10 years, and that's where town code and the state has been very clear that they are allowing this program or granting funds in this program in municipalities where there are existing codes related to ADUs, and they want to respect and follow, that's part of the requirement, that town code is followed. So after the 10-year period, while the grant would be forgiven, they would still have to adhere to town code in terms of what you require related to an accessory dwelling unit.
Could they rent this out for no price?
Yes,
Right,
so
if they have
that
a
is
child,
also, as Kara was talking about, recognizing that very often ADUs are used for multi-generational families. This is another great example of that, where also perhaps the owner could reside, in the rental unit, and the couple could reside, two couple individuals could reside in the house.
And that
then-
fits all the standards and
It does,
guidelines
it does.
so you don't have to charge your mother-in-law? Okay.
Now, the state doesn't require the ADU to be affordable, only the homeowner. But our code does require that the apartment that gets created, the person is income qualified. So it's gonna have to work with both of these things. And also, in terms of 10-year compliance period, once somebody has the rental income, which could be, $20,000 a year, even if their income now is above the threshold, they get to stay in the program. That's not an issue, right? The idea is to give those people more income.
Exactly. And your point well taken when this is one of the questions we bring up to the state. It's our understanding that the more stringent rule applies, right? So your code requiring that the unit also be affordable, we believe the state would say, that's your code, that would stand. It's not their requirement, but we don't believe that they would say that couldn't be enforceable here, but we want to make sure we get that in writing.
That's interesting,
Yeah,
And it's gonna be, this is part of the pending legislation? Is it?
No, this actually was passed last year,
Okay.
so I think we put, Jean Marie, did we put the proposal in like February of 2022?
No, it was late, like November. They moved quickly on awards.
Okay, oh, it was November of 2022.
Yeah.
Okay, so we responded to an RFP that was issued probably then in September and October, and that was based on the prior year's budget. So these funds are already set aside. The state, in their release of the RFP, has stated that this is the first round of funds that they plan on putting out. I believe it's $200 million that they have allocated to this statewide, and depending on how the initiative rolls out, would be able, to make additional awards.
But New York State's a home rule state, right? So the argument that's happening right now is whether or not the governor's desire to increase housing, which is, I think is a good thing. It's just the way it's being implemented, I have trouble with. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if they usurp a local municipality's zoning law, then we'd have no way to get that kind of enforcement.
So these funds are part of last year's budget, legislative budget, which preceded the conversation now related to the housing compact. So this, within the RFP and within the program guidelines, the requirement was funds would go to municipalities that had existing ADUs, and the program would roll out in compliance with those codes and regulatory aspects that the municipality
This is very
have.
much what we were asking for, the
Mhm.
governor
Yeah.
to provide incentives. This is an incentive, this is not a stick, this is a carrot.
Yeah, but the incentives still haven't happened, and they're still
No,
bad.
we got one, we got $2 million.
Right, and this, like I said, this
Well, but I
precedes the
mean
conversation.
total,
I could be
law.
wrong, I haven't checked my phone yet. I don't believe the budget has been settled yet
No, it
for this
hasn't,
year. So
yeah.
this is back, this is
Right.
The governor made statements
You know,
Tuesday
one of
that
the
she's going to drop.
complexity of,
Okay.
one of the
We'll see what happens
challenges,
in the budget.
one of the
Without a
biggest
doubt.
challenges of this program is the homeowner has to be income qualified. That's not in our
Yes.
program. This program, it has to be qualified to 100% AMI, which you put the numbers, like family of four, it's like $140,000. That's very difficult for a family of four to own a home in our community on an income of $140,000, which rules out a lot of the homes. However, there are a lot of seniors and people who bought homes years ago. Years ago, who finally fall in that income bracket back in the day when you could actually buy a home for what local wages were. So we're gonna have, the biggest challenge, and you and I have talked about this, is identifying
The people,
homeowners
absolutely.
who qualify, who only make 100,
Yeah, it's 102 for a household size of one, so to your point, we were thinking this could, a good subset here could be more senior residents that have been residents for an extended period of time, or
Right.
bought a house when it, the price
Yeah.
value didn't escalate as it
And
has
their
to
incomes
today.
have now gone down because they're on a pension, whatever it is, and so now they probably could qualify back when they had a higher salary. When they
Absolutely.
were working. So we think that there's a pool out there, and we think that that pool is gonna be identified by the enhanced star is a good place to start with, but other senior exemptions and looking with GIS at, 2 people living in a 4-bedroom home, that, good candidate potentially. to
I think
build out
based
a
on
farm.
those numbers, there's a great pool out there, to be honest.
Um,
From what I see.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but the other side of this is like sort of the taxes, like the people, like are there abatements for them for this improvement in their house? I'm sure that'll be a question, and then the
Yeah.
other thing is your income taxes now may knock you out of other programs you
Well, that was my,
were eligible for previously.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's one of the incentives the governor is
and
proposing.
thanks to that question,
To
was
not have
this
it count
taxable
against you,
income?
because you're
Right.
getting rental
And
income.
that's, again, one of the
Yeah.
areas we're looking both
Currently
through
it
the
is,
legislative
right.
process and through our meeting in May to get some clarification on
Yeah.
that, because you don't want to disincentivize individuals, to participate in this program.
Right,
Yeah, because
right.
if that's taxable income, then that
Yeah,
could
it's
be a
obviously on the
serious-
books because you're
yeah, that's a
renting
big-
it, you've got it loan.
Depending on their
Right.
situation, that could be a
Yeah.
huge difference.
It's income.
That's right. Can we go-
We are looking,
Oh,
though, for the
okay,
state
perfect.
We're not
to
getting
provide
ready.
some relief on property taxes and potentially income taxes. They should. If you're providing an ADU, affordable, yeah, you should be rewarded for that. You're
That should be
helping
sort of
solve
like a
a
box on your
community
little
need.
income taxes
Absolutely.
that you
Yeah,
check.
you shouldn't have to pay increased property taxes. You should pay less property taxes, in my mind.
So we'll just-
You're meeting a community need.
We're gonna just jump forward, just again, to give you some high level, just about the application and some more of the priorities that the state has set. We can go to the next slide here. Again, sort of high level, as I mentioned already, the program for this round, the first roughly $2 million, the clock has already started ticking as of March 20th, 2023, and the program does need to be concluded by 2025. As we've talked about already, there is income limitations for the applicant. We also have to ensure that any of the properties that are coming forward meet and are in line with all of your town codes. As we've talked about eligibility for a real estate tax exemption, we're waiting on getting greater clarification on that. We would also have to make sure that ADUs are affordable and that they meet the town rent caps. And then one of the other state priorities is that it would be located near public transportation. It's not a requirement, but is certainly, as they've set forward in their program plans, that there would be an evaluation of applicants and you would prioritize some, and public transportation, obviously it's more applicable in certain communities than others, would be a priority if that did in fact fit. So, as I also mentioned, CDCLI will be very involved. One of the reasons we feel and are very proud to be working with the town is our longstanding history, role, and success in working on construction projects, multifamily, individual residences, from doing a rehab to, a major rebuild or actual new construction. So the team is really qualified to take this on. The contract does have a minority women business enterprise requirement of 32%. So we will be looking to you and all residents within the community. Besides meeting that threshold and ideally exceeding it, we'd love to work as much locally as we possibly can to support local businesses here. We will be managing the contractor process, ensuring that contractors have all the necessary requirements to do business within the town, meet all of the insurance and liability requirements of the program, and then work with the homeowner. The homeowner can decide who to pick off of that list and they want to work with. They can manage that, or they could say to us, if it's a senior or someone else that really doesn't want to be overly involved in the process, we can work with them, obviously keeping them abreast of all of the updates and the progress there.
Gwen, who does the permitting, the contractor or you guys?
That's ideally we would imagine it coming through the contractor. I mean, and one of the things, and this is part of our ongoing conversation and partnership here, is we want individuals, we want experts, design experts that know the town, that know the process, that have a good relationship with leadership throughout the departments that are going to be key to bringing these developments over, the finish line. So we imagine it would be the contractors. That very often is the case in the other projects that we run, but we're obviously open if we want to talk about streamlining or, other aspects here, we can certainly, do what would work best within the town structure.
These contract lists, are they regional? I mean, so you have contractors who are familiar working with, say, Town of Islip, the Town of Brookhaven, as opposed to ones that, work out here?
We imagine, so just based on some of our other contracts, we do have regional contractors that we work with. Obviously, the construction or bringing an existing ADU to code does, it's a unique fit. It's not something that everyone has experience with doing, so we'd like those that have some expertise there. But then for some of the other aspects that, are the same regardless of if it's an ADU or not, we'd like to use local. So our hope is we have an existing list. We'd like to expand that and have ideally folks that, are specific region-wise, just because it makes it easier and it expedites the process.
But there's no separate New York State law for that, so we have to adhere to state law. You would have, this program would have to as well.
Yeah, she's just saying she'll pick local contractors to put on their list.
Okay,
to,
'cause there's-
uh,
But did I
there's
miss-
really no
did they-
special
Do you
knowledge
pay
as
the
far as
contractors directly?
We do pay the contractors directly, so this also keeps a little bit of the burden off both the contractor and the homeowner. CDCLI, again, just based on the nature of the work that we do, a rather large organization, we have the ability to absorb those costs and then get reimbursed. So that, in particular, for smaller contractors, recognizing, the challenges there, increased costs in labor and materials, we want to make sure people are paid as quickly as possible when work is completed, and we don't want the homeowner to be challenged with, I got this bill, what am I supposed to be paying? So we'll manage all of that.
But then they're still liable for the taxes on that as far as federal and state income tax?
Do you mean if the property was reassessed?
No, I'm talking
The
about
125.
the 125, they have to pay state and federal
It's all
income
taxes.
taxes
No, it
on the
gets passed through CDC Long
125,000.
Island, right? The person never gets the money.
Right, that's why there would be the lien on the property, and it's a forgivable loan, it's a
After
grant
10
program.
years.
After 10 years, exactly.
Do they have to
They're
declare
not,
it
there's
after
no
10
like gift
years,
and
or-
all that like we did with the IA systems is the question.
Yeah, so
No.
there's no
None
No.
of that, because
tax
the pass-through,
implications.
that was a rebate to the homeowner, they were receiving checks
They
from
made
the
it out
town.
of pocket.
Then we
Yes.
corrected that by us paying the contractor, and they're saying they're gonna do all that, which is great.
And-
So
and that
technically,
was-
the repayment in any way to the homeowner would be, as we talked about earlier, if they sold the home, let's say 5 years in, off of the home sale, they would lose that half of the
There's
$125,000.
a
And
pro
we have
rata
some
reduction. in-
Exactly.
We have some precedent here because, the IRS finally agreed that it's not
That was great
taxable
news, yeah.
income. But we're still fighting with them as far as the amendment time. But I think it sets a precedent for this as well.
But the homeowner never.
We'll never get it, but
We'll
I
never
think,
get it.
I
So
think
the,
nevertheless, I think
But it
there's
isn't
some
equivalent to their
leverage here.
property.
In the
Yeah.
case that the
It
house
is a
is sold in
forgivable
5
loan,
years.
so
and-
whatever the state.
So I have a question.
We're not
And,
waiving
and
building
part of the
permit
grant
fees,
comes
so
off the
we're
sale
just
price
proceeding.
do the liens come off as well?
All of our.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because the liens are solely for the
property.
process.
And
of
are
clawing back that money.
contractors obligated to
So
any
if you don't want any
prevailing
of that,
wage
you
standard or
exclude
anything like
that.
that?
That's a good,
That's
I
my
don't
point.
know, I
It's a
don't
good
recall
question,
seeing
but-
that in the contract. I don't think so, just because of the scope and scale of the project, so like it won't trigger Davis-Bacon. I mean, it's something we should check into. If we did somehow, let's just say we found a community where there were 10 homes that were applying for this, and they all qualified, and we were gonna use the same contractor, we might just have to double check that to make sure that didn't trigger based on the unit size.
Okay.
But I don't think so. I think
These are
were
pretty
seen as
small projects.
Small,
I mean,
separate,
we'd like to
standalone.
use local people.
And it's informal, the policies to try to spread this as much out in the community as we possibly can.
And I'd
Well, I
like,
think you're
does
only
the
gonna get
homeowner,
20 out of this
But hold on, so I had,
does the homeowner,
then-
I'm sorry, I'm
We're-
just
we're-
trying to get my questions in here.
We have to
Uh,
do prevailing wages.
Does the homeowner get a decision on what contractors they would like to use?
Absolutely, it's
I
up to
mean,
the homeowner, right?
that's-
So that's-
it's really on them.
It's two
but-
paths. We'll have a
Okay.
list
So do you
of
want to-
contractors that
Yeah.
are vetted. We could obviously, if someone said, my sister worked with this other company, out in Sag Harbor, and I would really like to use them, we could certainly go through the process of making sure that they qualified, to meet the standards here. It is a pretty tight budget, so, we're gonna be very thankful of the contractors that step forward and wanna work with us. This is, it's state dollars, and so it's tight. There is a note within the program guidelines that it cannot be a family member. So if I am a contractor myself, I cannot apply for the program and do the construction of the ADU on my own property. You cannot have an immediate family member do the construction of the ADU on your property either.
And I have one
And there's
last
no
question.
priority for local.
All right, let's Cindy.
One last question. If they get the grant for 125,000, can they put their own money in to make the project 100? If it costs 175,000, they could put in the other 50, or can they also do the work themselves or part of the work themselves, considering that it passes inspection and
Right,
everything that it
great
needs?
question. So there is part of again, with the state's focus on supporting financially constrained households, they want to make sure, as we look at the priorities, that the dollars go to households that, if not for, this could not get done, right? So if somebody has a house valued at $2 million, and from an asset perspective, they have another $7 million, even though their income is $50,000, they would say this is not a priority household to be focusing on. They have other resources. So we have to evaluate that. We're putting the criteria together on how to do that in a way that doesn't take us forever, and we're not looking to, dig back into people's finances for, 50 years. That being said, we do think it could be over the 125,000 for a few reasons. Cost of labor, materials like we've talked about. It's also important to note that the 125 cap is all in, which means contract management, which means administration of the program, which is CDCLI has a 10% administrative fee on that. So it's not, if it is 125,000 to do the construction, we'd need some additional resources there. And so to your point, if someone had $5,000 to put in, and I'm just throwing that out, don't quote me on it, I think that would be acceptable. We also will be using our loan program for those that don't have the $5,000 available but need it to get the ADU over the finish line. That's something that we would look at. I don't know if there is specific language to doing the construction yourself. I'm going to guess the answer is no. I don't know if you recall reading that. I know
If
it
someone's an
couldn't be a-
electrician, they may want to do the,
I think since you can't do your own construction, I would imagine you can't do your own electrical work yourself, right? So.
even if you're a licensed electrician.
I
Okay.
believe so. That was, like I said, that you cannot do
You
the
couldn't charge
construction.
for it. You could probably do it free of charge, but.
Well, that's my question is,
We can bring that back to the state.
Okay.
I think it
I'm
might get
willing to bet
unwieldy.
we're
Yeah,
going to
but
get
we'll-
that. That's
Can-
why.
Yeah.
You're saying,
we
can
have
you
some pretty
donate your
clever
own
people
labor?
here.
Not-
Right.
Not get
Okay.
paid for your own labor. You're.
Well,
Thank
then,
you.
like, you have more of the 125
Good
for
question.
finishings or other things, if you could, do some of it. If we have a lot of tradespeople here that may qualify
I
or
think you
something.
could probably volunteer it. I don't think you get paid for it, but.
Yeah.
Right.
Cindy?
So I had a question, because I think a lot of these are going to be done by seniors. Should those seniors decide to, I don't know, move to Florida and sell or give that house to their kids, can they pass it on with the lien instead of paying it back?
I believe so. Yes, we'll double check that. Or do you think it has to come off and then get?
No, I think that we'll have to check
Can they
into it
assume
because I
it?
think
Yeah.
it might have to be to
Right.
someone who is income qualified.
Well,
Yes.
so if they are income qualified and they're being gifted the house, or they're basically buying that house, they can buy it because of the apartment.
Or if they inherited it.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, can they just keep that lien on the property and keep that unit affordable?
I think to Jean Marie's point, as long as they are income qualified, that is also a requirement of the sale of the home within the 10-year period to not have a prorated clawback of the funds. So I believe, but we'll double check.
But if it's after 10 years, then obviously they can gift it to their kids and their kids get it with the
After
apartment.
10 years,
and-
the covenant and the lien would disappear.
So they may be able to transfer it to anyone, family member or not, who is income qualified, as long as they're income qualified.
Or
After the
community
10
housing.
year it
Or
would,
even prior.
But if they want to sell at market
With
rate,
the
they
lien.
just have to pay the back and to get the lien taken off. And then
Right,
they're free
right,
to
right,
sell the
sure.
whole thing.
but they would have to meet your code.
Right. But if
But
there's a
then
buyer.
you would then say
Willing-
you can't rent that unless it's income qualified.
Right. You have to-
So
if-
it's still, it would all be
Yeah,
fine.
And they could potentially qualify for a community housing fund at that point too, even if they're not income qualified, but they're willing to keep the apartment in the program as affordable, and they would have to, instead of ripping it out or paying back the money, they could come to us and say, okay, we want to keep it an affordable apartment.
We
We
can
just
pay
need
off
some
my loan.
financial help.
This could create a
we
complicated
pay the
estate
state?
issue if somebody passes and they have one of these.
Right,
and
I mean,
they're 3 years in.
I
and-
think it's pretty straightforward in terms of, that's probably one of the areas that's the most straightforward, right? It's 10 years. If you wanted to sell or proactively sell, again, it would need to be income qualified individual, and then that unit would still stay, the requirements would stay for the remaining 10 years. If you chose to sell prior to the 10 years, you would just, pay that back from
Yeah,
the
like
sale
any other
price.
lien that's on
Yeah,
the property.
yeah.
I mean, it's a very short period, 10 years, to have a forgivable loan. But we don't do anything like that, so.
Right, that's right, it's simply
If
a
they
declining
all went to
balance
market
we
value,
You
capture.
know, we have these perpetual interests
to the
on
next
the
slide.
property.
So,
That was one
Can I just,
slide.
one other,
Sure, yeah.
one other question I wanted to ask on the permitting side. It's actually, maybe it's two questions. One is, can we fast track these? Is it, I know that's part of your code for accessory dwelling units, but can we make them go quick? Because I know some private builders will, they pay $1,000 fee for expedited, and we don't want them to have to pay an extra fee. Can we just, as of right, say that these ADUs are fast tracked to our system?
We have a fast track process outside of the expedited review, and that's for like fences, sheds, decks, hot tubs, and that's quick review process. It goes in a separate bin. We have a dedicated person that goes through them. The only thing I would say is that you cannot be fast tracked if you have violations. So there's some amount of concern when it comes to, there was work done, there's some kind of violation. We typically try to remedy that violation as part of the new permitting.
And
And any kind of fast track
It
is
gets
just
a
gonna
little
slow.
sticky there.
It's gonna
because
slow everybody else up.
And that's why I said, like, there may
Bumps
be an
everybody
amnesty
else.
component
Especially
to
if you're
all
not
of this
paying.
that may work. Even if you don't, but at least people feel like they're not gonna be penalized. Like, right now, it's double the fees if it's, work done. And we may say, well, if you're trying, right now, we're inundated.
Yeah.
But when we, like, kind of clear up a little bit, I would like to have some type of program where we have an amnesty avenue so that people can feel that they can step forward out of the shadows and legalize whatever
I just feel
sin
like,
they did.
we can't
And we move
fast
forward,
track
and
it.
then
For their-
they're
for their
free and
sake.
clear.
We can't fast track anything until stuff is moving through
We
at a
can,
much
we
better.
do have a fast track process even today, and we'd like to fast track this. I just have to add the caveat that you're not fast tracked if you built some
Screw it
other
up somehow.
thing that no one knew about, and now
But
you
it's-
gotta legalize that. We can't fast track this while that's still there or needing to be
It seems to
legalized.
me
We're
that this
also
is a higher
facing this
priority than
3%.
somebody getting a pool,
Yeah,
It
but people
is.
getting a pool are supporting our industries and our contractors, and not saying this isn't, but it's not fair to make this go faster than everybody else that's been in the pipeline and is waiting through the
It would be in
process.
the same line as a pool. The pool line
disagree.
would
It's
would
a-
include these. There's
This helps
already a
address the
line,
crisis.
and people are already on it.
What about building permit fees? Do we typically waive them? For
We
affordable?
waive like multifamily affordables. I don't think we waive accessory apartments right now. So
Okay.
you could consider that if you want to. That's, you'd have to also look at how much revenue, but,
So it's a lot of work on our part.
there's a lot of work on our part.
And
There's
we'll
a lot
look
of
at,
administrative
that
work.
would be super helpful, and I know Kara's been great, as we've been starting the process here, just all of that for us to get to sort of build into the template as we look at the funds that are available. So if the application process, is X, we know that, because what we want to do is be able to also inform the homeowner as much as possible, what are the steps to also manage expectations, right? Because we all know construction, even in the best of times, is never quick. So we want to manage what that may look like. Like, this process right now is going to look like X months before,
Right. Well,
it's completed.
Most permits are held up on the technicalities that CDC will probably be able to overcome, which are, insurance certificates, licensing situations. It's the plans and being compliant with zoning is another thing. Like, if you're, now you're creating some kind of side yard setback thing, maybe we can create another process at the ZBA where we have sort of a fast track so you can get on that calendar, a little space there. Because then, if suddenly you find out you need a setback variance, well, now you're, it's 8 months later and you're still waiting for your hearing. So we've got a lot of that. Sorry, but I think we can identify those sort of systems and account for ways to people get through them a little more easily.
But we also have another issue, I'll just bring this up quickly, it's probably a little non sequitur, but the cost of living for low to moderate income person, the actual cost it costs to operate the home is really critical. In some cases, it's 15 to 20% of their income. That's a lot compared to other families. And it's a little more expensive upfront to build a house that's more efficient, but over the long period, you recoup that cost. And that should be passed back to to that owner who's maybe wanting to do that sort of, has that ever been discussed? And
I mean, a lot of the work that we do when it comes to either new construction or rehab, we are very much focused on energy efficiencies and, creating greater sustainability, environmental outcomes, as well as creating greater cost savings for homeowners. So we certainly would look to incorporate, as much as we possibly can here. The other thing that we see as a great benefit of this partnership is to leverage the other programs that we have, right? So many of the homeowners, based on their income, would also qualify for some of the other work we do around weatherization and energy efficiency. There are many new programs that are coming out. We're running a resiliency retrofit program for homeowners in the floodplain. So there are other resources that we look forward to bringing to the homeowners that do meet the income guidelines of this program, if they so choose, of course, to participate. That wouldn't be a requirement.
yeah, I mean, we have these laws available to people here who are building, but it's the cost of getting to that point that could be restrictive, particularly for the kind of incomes that we're talking about, like that.
I mean, I think the great thing, again, about this program is there really wouldn't be, and I can't, Jamie, I don't know if you could think of any out of, off the top of your head, like initially for a homeowner to incur. I mean, they would just be working with us. We'd look at the, financial makeup of the household, the feasibility of the property and the parcel complying, with town code requirements, and then go from there. As we have
I
no.
mean, if we have CDG type programs that we want to contribute in these, if there are
Oh.
roofs to do that type of thing.
I mean, that would be wonderful. I
Where
think.
would those costs, where would that hookup cost be passed on to? Would it be passed on to the owner, or would it come out of the program, or have you guys?
Do you mean
given
like
that?
if you use some of your CDBG funds to complement
No, I
this?
was actually thinking CDG, Community Distributed Generation, where we have
Oh.
roofs that we can
Gotcha.
actually, because we're trying to do programs to actually help low and moderate income people in certain areas with our sustainability renewable energy programs.
So I
And
think-
there may be some synergy here.
Definitely. I would be driven probably by the guidelines of that program. I'm not sure what the requirements are for a single-family home with an accessory dwelling unit. I would imagine there'd be quite a bit of savings for the homeowner, but I can't say definitively.
Okay, yeah, just something to keep in mind. Thank you.
So we are looking, as I mentioned at the start, we are working on, the team is doing a great job putting everything online. We do have an inquiry form now, so for anyone listening or watching this at any point, anyone that you talk to, they can easily go onto our website, input some information, and we'll follow up with them once we do have the application available. We also welcome any names, contacts related to, design experts that have done a bit of work within the town, because again, they have relationships with departments, they know the process, and that's what we're really looking to do, is streamline this, add value to the homeowner's experience, to the housing experience, and obviously to the departments within the town.
Yeah, and we've already had a discussion, we're gonna link that to our town's website, so it will go right to your application.
So you have like a year and a half, basically, a little bit more, 2 years to create. You're gonna try to do 20 units or something like that?
Again, it could be anywhere from 12 to 20, depending on where we really land in actual cost to get the ADU over the finish line. Who comes forward? If we have 15 homeowners that have existing units and they just need to bring it up to standard, to code, and it's only gonna cost $30,000, then we could, be helping even more households. So it's a little bit unknown. We do have timeframes and requirements for meeting some of the goals. So by September, we need to have 25% of applicants approved and ready to move. So it's a pretty ambitious goal that the state has put forward. So we will, and we know that with every day that passes, you get closer and closer to your highest season. I know every day is high season out here, but your highest season, as we make our way into May and June, we'd like to be on the ground at some places, whether it's senior centers or other community events, informing people about this, having the application available, talking to homeowners about the benefits, and getting more people in the pipeline.
Okay, yeah, and we can help you with that. I just really think that the IT department is critical. I mean, we could help identify good candidates. Again, like a senior living alone in a 4-bedroom house we know is getting an enhanced star exemption. For you to be able to reach out directly to that person rather than waiting for them to come to you.
Definitely. we
and say,
appreciate that.
Hey, we think that you're a really good candidate. You don't have to lay out a penny. We will build out this apartment in a section of your home, and you will start getting $2,000 a month in income. Just sign here, I think that's how you're gonna get your people.
We welcome that, and that's part of
You certainly can go to our senior center and various places and pass out literature, but I do think that having us in our IT department sort of steer you toward a list of income qualified individuals with homes, whether they have a garage, a basement, 2 people living in a 4-bedroom house, whatever it might be, we have the best GIS, best like IT department.
We can't wait to partner on that, because our hope then is to have that information, do some very targeted mailings to individuals, do some follow-up, phone call, email-wise, and do some door knocking.
I was gonna say door knocking,
And
literally.
say, you've received this already, you've seen it, questions, let us tell you a little bit more about it. It is actually what it says it is, you know, this isn't some predatory lending scam,
Right.
this is
People
really
are
a great
always gonna be a little
opportunity.
bit nervous. You're offering them
Understandable.
$125,000 for nothing.
Right,
That is gonna be forgiven. Most people would be like, yeah, where's the catch?
exactly.
Where's the catch? But there is no catch here.
What we
Right.
think in particular is
It's
we're
not just
talking about.
$125,000, it could be an additional $20,000 or $30,000 a year in income on top of that.
And it could be, you know, somebody in the family living, you know, moving out of the basement or something, and having, you know, a place to live and be supportive of the aging parent as well. So we believe it brings great value to the homeowners and to the community, and
Yeah,
so
it's great.
we're
So
excited to be
over a
working.
10-year period for somebody who gets, let's say, $125,000 in value to their home and $20,000 in income, we're talking about like $300,000
One of
in
the-
free money.
One of the questions that's going to be asked is whether or not this is going to be available for people in our villages. I think that's probably a Kara question.
The +1 program? Yeah, I believe it's throughout the town.
It's throughout the town, so-
It includes villages,
Okay.
The whole world.
as long as they qualify.
Like, yeah.
Right,
And the village has to have a code too that allows it.
And I would offer that the middle class should be availing themselves, like hopefully the governor or someone in the state would eventually see that, yes, it's great for income qualified people to do this, but there's this middle class that doesn't meet the threshold, but are more likely to do it. Because they're the, like, 40-somethings, 50s that can do it. And they have the means, but they don't have $100,000 laying around.
Right.
And so it's not entirely fair to preclude that whole segment of the population out, but for now,
So we've discussed, if there is somebody that comes to the +1 program and does not qualify, income qualify, perhaps they can come over to our CHF fund and request funds that way.
Right.
that would be
yeah, we
great.
think as much data as we can collect to make the cases that everyone is more
Yeah.
powerful,
Yeah.
right? So if we know that there are, 300 households that are interested, but only 10 qualify, that's a strong message about then how do we help support those other households?
Yeah, we can
And
bring them into our
and to your
program.
point, the CDBG areas as well, that's critical to that. The interconnects for CDG programs here that we have, our sustainability programs, that IT has all that info, which may be really critical to making that transition pretty easy, because it's,
Yeah.
there's money to be gained
Right.
from that as far as not spending so much money.
Our program's not forgivable though, so we'll eventually get the money back.
Right, correct.
Which will be interesting to see with this being forgiven, is do we see a shift, right, in the households that come forward? Well,
Cool.
thank you all
Thank
so
you.
much for your
Right.
time. We look forward to working together with you. And
Yeah, thank you, Glenn.
absolutely, thank you. Have a
Please
great.
keep us apprised of your,
As soon as that application
Success.
is up and running, we will have it over to you. And if you think of any additional questions or clarifications that you would like from the state that I haven't provided, we can bring that forward during our May check-in with them.
Well, the next couple of days are kind of critical because we have no idea what's actually going to end up happening. So we'll see.
Thankfully, this is tucked in, so
Separate.
that won't change.
That part of it.
This part, yes.
The part we can do to make it even better.
but we also have to do the piece that Kara talked about earlier, is amend our code so that not every one of these things has got to need a variance, right? So, for lot size or whatever it is, or, I think it's important that we do those modifications. Did anybody have any questions
Or
for
very least expedite.
Kara
the
about the
process.
proposed changes to the ADU law?
No, I plan on meeting with Kara and Ryan Murphy and Janice on the side to get a lot, because this is the first time I've actually had a chance to really look at it, so I have lots of questions that I think I can
Yeah, I want to
handle.
find out what it does to the already illegal, overcrowded homes that we have. Does it start to make them legal, and does that help us in any way? We have a lot of issues.
And one thing this didn't call out specifically was the occupancy standards, and that's always a big question among the community. Like, well, how many people are you gonna fit in this 300 square foot apartment? You know, so we want to make sure that's probably in the code as well. Like,
Like,
just
that's what I want to know, like, from Ryan, because I think a lot of our illegal apartments are not even apartments. It's people renting out bedrooms.
Right.
So for them to come and get legal and have an apartment doesn't meet their needs.
Right.
So,
So how much time do we want to, say a month, and then come back, and then Kara comes back for a work session on this?
Sure.
Kara
put
and
a notice
Janice?
of hearing on
Or-
it.
Do you need that? I was
I was
hoping to
thinking-
introduce a
me
accessory
too.
apartment law changes sooner than that.
It's at the board's pleasure, so
Okay, 2
whatever.
weeks?
We're gonna have to
Yeah.
hold a public hearing anyway, but I
Right.
would say, 2
Couple-
weeks,
couple
can you meet
weeks,
with Karen?
Yeah, I can meet with them in 2
and
weeks.
I do have
then-
concern about the owner occupancy aspect as well. I understand what you're saying about people who are, their domicile is in another area and they want to rent it. I think there's something that we could do on that issue as well, but,
Yeah,
we'll
just 'cause
meet.
like,
aside.
we have such an acute problem east of the Shinnecock Canal in terms of creating affordable housing, but that's also where your highest number of seasonal houses are. And so you basically, if you take all the seasonal houses and say none of them can qualify, then you're very limited as to, you're gonna end up with most of these ADUs going west of the canal.
It could be something as simple as just saying
Thank you.
that
Thanks, Glenn.
only
Thank
one
you.
unit could
Thank you.
be rented on a property.
Yeah,
That would do it.
well, yeah, exactly.
So-
I think that's already in there. It's only one rental.
yeah.
No, you can't have two.
Right. Well, that's how it is right now, so you'd be wondering if you want to
And it's
amend
also,
that
a
in
lot of
some way.
those, a lot
Well,
of
then
those
then
summer
we're not going to have
homes,
2 rentals.
a lot
It's
of
not
those summer
gonna be an
homes actually
apartment
are
situation.
major generators of labor. So they create a lot of labor, but the labor ends up living west of the canal and commuting in. and-
Well, that was originally the carriage house concept, was
Yeah.
the very, the estates would have a carriage house for their,
Property manager.
property manager, or helpers, or,
They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, now it's their guest house. So those all also are not utilized as affordable housing, that's just for,
Yeah, carriage
guests.
house, I don't think it has to be used in conjunction, but it's not required to be affordable. It's
No,
not
carriage
required to
houses
be
are development right, because that is much larger and different. Carriage houses are not the same as accessory
Right.
ADUs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause they're-
so, but I'm
they-
saying that was the, model in the past, where they sort of
It's really-
accounted for
carriage
the
houses
help
are
on
basically
site, where
just a
that is no
second
longer the case.
Unrestricted dwelling on the property, though it's supposed to be used in conjunction with the main house. But it's used for family, it's used
It's,
for,
you get a development right with a carriage house, so
Yeah.
that's an appropriate use of development right, because it is,
yeah.
additional density, it's much larger. Accessory is always, it's subservient to the main use, so
This
it's
is
not
workforce.
a separate, entire, huge thing. That's the idea there.
Right. This
So
is for
caretakers living on a property, that necessarily did not happen with the carriage house concept, but that's something that we would like to see, perhaps.
It just comes down to people trying to live their lives and have a place to do that from and be in safe,
Well,
secure
there-
housing. We care about the safety aspect more than anything else.
Right.
And the community character and making sure that it's not a nuisance. That's what zoning's all about.
And there are a lot of other details for that kind of stuff, there's separate meters and water sources, and, how to, it puts a, there's a lot of detail that goes into making that work, so.
True, but I mean, like, if you, now it's becoming much more in vogue, you have a lot, it's not as hard as you think it is to create an ADU. It's just the
Well, I just
interior finishing
think-
of
And
space.
I think we need to look at too, I think it needs to be either the owner of the home or the renter needs to be income qualified, because I think this could help people. If you could have a market rate apartment I know a lot of working class people, middle class, would like on your property, and that allows you to buy a home or stay in a home, I think we should look at that.
I just
But
know
that's-
business
that
owners
defeats the
that want
purpose
to
of
have
this
a
whole
place
thing,
to
right?
I
put
think
their
That's how it used to be.
seasonal work.
If it
See,
allows
that's sort of
somebody
in the law. You
who's
can-
income
the
qualified.
homeowner could live in
To
the
have a
accessory
market
apartment.
rate?
The homeowner could live in the
That's in
accessory
the
or
law.
in the main dwelling.
But the
But I
fact
think
that
what
they don't
you're
have-
saying is
Like, if you're an income
either-
quality family of 4 and you need extra income to stay in that home, and you're looking at maybe having to give up your house because you can't afford to live there anymore, but if you put an ADU on your property and can charge market rate for it, and that helps you stay in your home and your family of 4 is income qualified,
So I
why
think
shouldn't
under
that?
the current law, you could move into that accessory apartment.
But not if you have a family of 4.
And rent out the main house.
But
The idea is these
main house
accessory-
would have to come under the rental
Affordable.
qualifications.
Okay.
Yeah.
It used to be, you just build an ADU and you could, in your own heart, be like, I'm only renting it out for this much because I know so-and-so and it's only gonna be this much money. Or you could be like, it's for, whoever comes here in the summer and I'm charging top dollar. It was your choice as the property owner. Then the board said, we don't want that anymore. We want only these extra units if they're for our workforce or for affordability only.
Right.
So, still, the rents are competitive. I mean, if you have a one-bedroom, do you have, off the top of your head, know the rent?
Yes.
1,600 or something like
Yeah,
that?
it's 1904.
Oh, I know people
1900.
paying 2,500 for a studio,
So you could still be a family in need, do the ADU, keep the rent to 1,900, you're still getting helped out, and it's part of the program. So you don't need to go to $4,000 a month and just get somebody from the city who can afford it. You want to get, the Bayman or whoever it is that needs the home, that lives here and works here.
I
That's
see
the
what Cindy
idea.
is saying, though. I mean, we could make it so at least one of the two units.
one of the
have to be
units is income
affordable.
qualified.
Is income qualified.
As long
So
as
it
one
could-
or the two is, then you
So
can.
the homeowner, actually, if the
Well,
homeowner is
the
income
plus
qualified.
one
I'm just
would-
looking for a way for a family to stay in a unit, right? Because a family is not gonna be able to move into 1,000 square foot ADU. They're still gonna need places to live, and if allowing them to, if CHF can help them purchase a home and there's an ADU on it, that's, I mean, you can,
We'll look at that. You
You still have all those things you need to meet.
There's always the
Flow
idea
rates
that
and
someone's
all
gonna say,
that
I don't
stuff.
want this anymore, I don't wanna be, and then we tell them you have to take it out then. Instead, you could have
yeah,
a
but this
callback
is the whole thing,
provision
I think,
like
I
they
think
are
all of
saying.
these ADUs are gonna get built, and I see them falling out of the program and getting abused, I really do.
see, I mean, the governor wanted ADUs as of right in no matter what size lot.
Yeah, but that's not
across
gonna
the board.
happen,
It
but-
didn't happen. It was
Last
very
year,
controversial.
Well, we don't know yet.
You don't need to bring it.
Let's not
No,
be
I know, but
premature.
I mean, this is a pretty restrictive program that we're talking about, and we.
I
know
just,
that-
I have a lot of questions, so in the next
I
2
mean, the-
weeks,
the
I will
current
meet with
program is
you
only
and
producing
Kara
2 a
and
year.
Ryan
We
and.
need to do better, so,
Yep.
and I don't know what our goal is for ADUs, but, it can't be 2 a year. It's got to be, whatever, 20, 50, whatever, a year.
And the other aspect that we're trying to avoid is having an ADU that someone could rent for $22,000 for the summertime for, or whatever. I mean, there's, in many parts of the town, that's the kind of market that possibly could happen.
All right.
Right.
So
And
we're
that's not
gonna-
really solving our need.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
all right,
Thanks,
so-
guys.
So are we gonna move on to our 12 o'clock topic?
Yeah, we're moving on to solid cost.
Thank you.
So Tom, did you ride?
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That would have made the whole story,
I know.
I was all ready to write a nice press release.
Right?
And get some picture in the paper.
I was worried about not scheduling enough miles each day, and then I overscheduled the miles.
That's what you're
Would've been
worried about? That's
140
not
a
what I
day.
would worry.
ooh, that's rough.
Yeah, and then my cousin bailed on me. She got COVID. She lives in Manhattan. I was gonna stay at her place the night I was gonna start, so that I could start from Manhattan instead of out here. And the whole thing kind of unraveled a little bit. It was not in as good a shape as I was last year either. So.
It'd be interesting to see the pathway you're gonna take.
Oh, it sucked. So I was taking the most direct route. So I was going straight
Driving
through
through
Philly.
Baltimore?
I was going straight through Wilmington. I was going through Baltimore. It was. I almost bought pepper spray.
Tom wasn't coming back, in other words.
But I mean, sometimes people don't bother people on bicycles, so it's all right.
Just the potholes
I
alone.
think just the ambition of it's amazed me to begin with.
Yeah, I should have started riding 2 months ago instead of.
Well, I thought it was-
All right.
But he did take the train.
Yeah, no, I took the Amtrak down. So
Good.
last week I attended the Department of Energy. Do we want for Tommy John? Or?
He'll be back in a second. Go ahead and get started.
I attended the Department of Energy conference in Washington, D.C. We're part of the Better Buildings, Better Plants Challenge.
Just just for our
Yeah.
viewing audience. Tom Houghton,
Oh, I forgot we're on.
yeah, we're being broadcast, so
Okay.
our town engineer,
Yes.
okay, and Frank Sapone, deputy supervisor, and our topic here is the Better Projects Award from the U.S. Department of Energy.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So last year I attended the conference. It's 2.5 days of seminars and talks and educational items on electrifying buildings, insulating buildings, heat pump technology, and basically decreasing your usage or your electrification usage of the building so that you can then add solar and heat pumps afterwards. So you want to cut your electricity usage and then electrify the remaining items. It allows you to appropriately size your heat pump equipment and your solar. So you're not going in and addressing your incandescent light bulb electricity usage and the like. You can size to LEDs and just use less electricity overall. That's the important part. So this year, they sent out a challenge. They asked for project submissions back in January, and we had last year completed our town hall project. We installed the 16 variable refrigerant flow heat pumps in the back courtyard. We eliminated the steam heat from the building, which we were dependent upon the elementary school for, and we converted all of our fluorescent lights to LEDs. So I summed up that entire project, our decrease in greenhouse gas emissions as a result of going from a fossil fuel burning steam heat system to electricity, and presented all of that to the Department of Energy. And out of 75 project submissions, we were one of the 36 that were awarded as a winner.
That's great.
So I went down, we had a poster presentation on Wednesday, stood around with a bunch of other posters and answered questions for an hour and a half. A lot of people interested in the project. It's actually a really cutting edge project, especially with the amount of square footage that we're conditioning in this building. Coupled with the fact that it was a brand new install. We did not have any ductwork, we didn't have any existing air conditioning. It was completely new. So
Major project.
yeah, major project while under occupancy.
Yeah.
Like
So
it was a huge project. So
we had to shift offices and move people around. And Frank, you were involved a lot with the space
Well,
needs.
and unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here, but Peter and his crew played a
Peter and
major
his
role
crew.
in helping people transition, making sure they had desk space, computers, file cabinets, et cetera, et cetera.
yeah, absolutely.
It was a major undertaking, and just to emphasize what Tom has already said, we are, 100% fossil fuel free. It may be one of the only municipal buildings on Long Island that's 100% fossil fuel free. This is a 100+ year old building. Doing any work in here is a big challenge. Doing this magnitude of work is even a bigger challenge, and I think the water flow, we reduced our water consumption by what, 90%?
Yeah. So our project of converting the faucets within each of the bathrooms from either 1.5 gallon per minute sensor faucets to now 0.52 gallon per minute sensor faucets, or eliminating the knobs altogether, we've reduced our water consumption by like 90%.
Wow.
I
which is
remembered
massive.
the email. Go wash your hands before you complain to me and
Yeah.
time it.
So we summed it all up, and they were very impressed by the amount of work that we were able to do to one building.
It's really impressive. There's another person we should really,
Yeah, Christine.
Christine,
Absolutely.
she really, our former town engineer, worked really hard on this, and
Yep.
she spent
And I remember
tremendous
the
amount
days
of
of
time.
interviewing various companies that provided these heat pump. In fact, there was a company that we had hired, we were looking for a conventional boiler type baseboard heat or
Furnace.
hot air furnace system. And they came back with this heat pump idea, which was very much cutting edge and not necessarily a proven concept. But she
Is it
did an
working?
enormous amount of research and justified the expenditure. And
Has it worked out okay? I mean, we haven't had a super cold winter. That was like one of my biggest
Well,
concerns.
these are cold weather heat pumps, so we do get the performance out of them. We've had some issues with the snow, but we've since changed our operation of our snow plowing to kind of keep the units functioning.
Are we gonna cover them eventually?
Well, we have the scaffolding right now. We may put snow hoods on them in the future, but outside of plowing our snow into the units, I don't expect that we'll have issues in the future.
Is there any way to put the condensation outflows, like direct it somewhere, so it doesn't just,
I mean, that's just it's just what happens.
so we don't have to walk through puddles?
Oh, okay. We are going to be repaving that back parking lot when we redo the sanitary system, so.
Okay.
Could do some drainage underneath where
I'm just like, if you had like a tray that directed all the water
You
to one
could
location.
Yeah, we
certainly
could,
have it drip tubes and things like that, or
We
drip
can put it
pans.
through filters and put it back into.
Should
That's
have
a
a pan.
manageable problem.
Yeah,
Pan
just,
with
you
a little
know,
outlet.
You don't have to flood out the parking lot with
Well, I
condensation.
just want to say, you
we
guys
have-
have done this fantastic job, and, you know, we've all sat down at the tables over the years, going through the numbers and what was gonna happen.
Yeah, this-
And I'm
I-
sorry Peter can't be here either, because I always remember him flying around, and I certainly appreciate you picking up the leadership on this.
I gotta say, it was Christine's project, so I just wanna,
No, I agree.
Reiterate
That's how
that,
it
so-
started,
Yeah, she
so.
worked really hard, but you have worked really hard on it too, and it seems to be a success, so.
so,
Well, the
here's the award.
Department of Energy
All right.
seems to think
It's
so.
also was, this was like a $4 million.
I think that
Yeah,
should, I think that should go downstairs in the
This was
engineering
not a
office.
cheap
We can,
thing.
I'd actually like to put it in the case in the lobby,
There you
Yeah.
go.
There you
if that's
go.
I
possible.
think
Yep.
that's a good idea.
We have a poster that I was not able to bring back, but we can recreate it. They gave us the file for it, so I'd like to get that printed out, and then we can put the two together in one of the
You have
cases
that
downstairs.
file, because we
Yeah,
can get it done
You,
outside.
you doing a press release on this?
Yes,
Okay, good.
so,
it's going out
Jay,
this afternoon.
I was informed in the hall that we do have a time-sensitive matter that needs to happen in exec.
Bragging rights here.
No, I know,
Yeah.
I get it.
That could
I
actually
just-
go in this case,
Well, by
because this
the way,
program is up
just so you
Memorial Day,
guys know,
so.
I was
this
put
is
on notice.
my
Now you are.
project update. I just wanted to let you know.
You just saved 20 minutes.
so we got the hard work out of the way on this project, and we're using it as kind of a template for our future building renovations. Heat pump plus solar produce as much electricity as we're consuming, and hopefully eliminate our electric bills on the building, and utilize that savings to pay off the equipment cost. So,
Can I, while
Yes.
while you're here, and I know we do have to move along, but I do have a pressing matter I wanted to ask you about. So the county, we've got some information now
Yes.
on County Road 39 sidewalk project?
we do.
Can you share that?
We received, I don't want to call it a rebuttal, but we received a response to my initial comments that I had sent to Jeff Dawson on the County Road 39 project. He addressed a number of the items that I raised concerns about. He also refuted a number of items as well. There's proposing to stick with mountable curb. They have, from what I understand, completely redid the drainage design so that they will not be capturing water within the center median or piping within the center median. So there will be no reason to close the center turn lane, so they'll be able to reutilize that. I haven't seen that update yet. They've also pushed that project back a couple years. So the way the schedule is looking right now, it will be North Sea Road, US Open, and then I believe the bridge, and then 39.
The bridge.
The
Gravel Hill.
Railroad Bridge.
Railroad Bridge adjacent to Gravel Hill
Gravel
Road in
Hill,
Hampton Bays.
I
Yes.
did want to ask you about that, but so the County Road 39 sidewalk project is now 2027?
Approximately, yes.
Okay.
But I asked Bill Hillman on that, if that was, I said, because 2027 was when they were scheduled to repave 39. I said, is that 2027 the repaving, the sidewalks, or both? He said, we haven't figured that out yet.
Okay.
Well, it makes logical
What did he
sense.
put in
but-
writing?
So,
But we do not have to worry about 39 this fall.
No.
No,
The-
North Sea Road is the next one that they plan on doing.
Okay, and
I have not received those comments back yet.
you've given them extensive comments on North Sea Road.
Yes.
But you also gave them extensive comments, I thought, on the railroad bridge too, and the routing of traffic related to the railroad bridge.
We did.
Have they responded back to that? Because that's a concern too, if they're gonna do any closures on Montauk Highway.
Yes, during the Council on Environmental Quality Review that the county held, the county awarded us kind of an equal stake in the traffic plan for that. We're supposed to work with not Jeff Dawson's team, with the county's team on the bridge, but just as we were starting to like have that meeting, the 39 plans came out. So that was sidelined.
Right, so right now, the railroad bridge work is scheduled for 2024,
I
25?
think it's 26 at this point. It got
2026.
pushed back further. They're only going to
It's
do one
before-
project
yeah.
at a time. It's the North Sea Road, then the US Open, then the bridge. Bridge work may start earlier than that, but it's not going to impact the roadway. It's all under the bridge and essentially prep work.
Because I was told originally that the work on the bridge was not gonna shut ever Montauk Highway, that they'd always have at least one lane open?
That's impossible.
You can't- how do you
Okay,
do that?
so maybe I misunderstood that.
That
So-
was for County Road 39.
Okay.
The way the bridge is constructed, they have to take the whole thing down. They
So there will
can't
be
slice it down the middle.
full-on closure of Montauk Highway?
That's why we were so
Can that be
concerned
done
about the
like at
traffic
2 o'clock in
diversion.
the morning? Or no, is it
It's
gonna be an extended period?
About
of time?
8 months.
They're gonna divert the traffic south, right?
Yes.
South and north.
And that's why we were so
Yeah,
concerned
you
about
can't
it.
do that work in time.
But is it gonna be a
zones.
winter project? Or?
We're not sure at this point. They've
Well,
changed the
we need-
schedule so
we
many
need to know
times.
that. I'm not gonna be here, but I still think it's important that
Very
as they
important.
plan that project, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, there's still gonna be lots of traffic on Montauk Highway.
And the bridge design is changing as well. We've been told that the railroad wants to add a second track in that area, which results in a larger span.
That's
So
news to me too. That's,
I don't know if any of it's confirmed. These
are they thinking of they wanna have room
They
for a
wanna
second
have the
track?
second
Yeah.
track,
Pull off?
so.
Or are they thinking
and
in the
they're
future of
looking at-
actually having 2 sets of tracks out here?
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
is why they've
That's big.
Very
asked for
big.
basically a redesign of the bridge. So that's all in discussion right now. I haven't seen anything since our initial comments.
Yeah.
What about widening
Good.
of the bridge? We get a bike lane in there? or
I did
another
ask for
sidewalk?
that. So we ended up, I think they had 12-foot travel lanes and a 3-foot shoulder, and then the sidewalks. I asked for them to go to 11-foot travel lanes, widen the shoulder so that you could actually get a bicycle down it while still keeping the sidewalks. So they're amicable to that for sure.
All right, so you just shared a lot of news, I have to
Oh,
say.
sorry,
So-
yeah.
But I just want to qualify it, because we need to confirm this from certain places, particularly on that order, because I'm
Yeah,
not quite
all of
sure.
it's
Yeah,
up in the air.
So again, on the breaking news front, the sidewalk project for County Road 39 is pushed back to 2027,
Approximately.
approximately. Okay, so a lot of people were concerned about that project. The railroad bridge project.
Pushed
which
back as well.
Was pushed back to also 2027.
The
roughly
shutdown would occur after the US Open,
Which is 2026.
Yes.
So,
probably that fall,
and the Long Island Railroad is contemplating a second track.
from what I understand, yes.
Okay, so those are all big items in my mind. So, and they're all positive, I think, as well, too. So it gives us a lot more time to plan for those events.
well, I mean, there's, outside of Southampton, there's other things that this impacts, so that's
You know,
why there's
of
confirmation.
East Hampton.
If our future has 2 sets of railroad tracks, that creates unbelievable potential now to have east and westbound trains.
And I'm not sure if it's a siding or a complete second
yeah.
track, but still, both are great.
Yeah,
You need some way for the trains to be
Siding,
able
yeah.
to pass at certain.
There's currently a siding at the station in Hampton Bays.
Mm,
They may be thinking of something else.
maybe.
Kind of
But-
an odd
but
place
not
to have
to-
a siding under a bridge, but
Not to take away from, that's all great and good,
Residential.
I
but
still have to get the train over.
the win in Washington at the Department of Energy, I really want to congratulate you. It was a lot of work. It really was good, and we really did some fantastic stuff.
And
that we're
projects
looking-
like these are keeping us on track to meet our goals.
all right.
Reducing our greenhouse gas emissions.
And
So
thanks for going. I'm sorry you didn't get your bike right in, but
No, Tom, you're doing a good job. Thank you for all that you're doing.
you really are.
You really stepped up. We mentioned Christine Fenton. She did a great job, and, big shoes to fill, not literally, but figuratively. So, but you have, you really have stepped up and finished these projects, and they're being recognized on a national level. That's great. It's great news.
Yeah.
thank you.
Good job, thank you.
We had a good, interesting conversation on the solar project in North Sea today too, with DEC and
Yes.
Tom led the conversation.
twisting some arms.
Yeah.
over
Yeah, we're gonna,
There's
We
a
have a
couple
battle there,
issues
too.
over there.
there. Another time.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right, so.
Thank you, Frank.
I know we have some time-sensitive executive session matters, so in the interest of that, I'm going to skip updates on my part. But if anybody else has something that's time-sensitive, you have
I would
Great East
skip.
End
I would
cleanup?
skip. Yeah, Great East End cleanup, Saturday and Sunday. Weather, rain or shine.
Saturday is National Drug Take Back Day. There will be drug collection from 10 to 2 at the Hampton Bays Community Center, the Flanders Community Center, the Southampton Police Department Substation at the Bridgehampton Commons. That's this Saturday from 10
Any
to 2.
other time-sensitive announcements? Okay, so for executive session, we do have personnel And we have acquisitions, property acquisitions, and I'm going to assume confidential legal advice. So I will make a motion to end our work session and go into executive session on those items.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned.